Chapter 1173. Alright, I'll wait for you here for a month. After a month, bring the refined heaven essence pills here to find me. No matter how many you refine, I'll do one thing for you. The Black Crow Venerable pondered for a moment and said to Tang Ao, "How could one thing be enough?" Tang Ao secretly pondered in his heart. Although this Black Crow Venerable looked ordinary, his cultivation was not to be underestimated. With him by his side, even if he encountered Lei Lingyun, Tang Ao would not be afraid. Therefore, Tang Ao thought for a moment and said, "Senior, the herbs needed to refine the heaven essence pills can be said to be inexhaustible in this place. It's just that this junior's strength is too low, and I've offended many people in the Xidagarba cemetery. Therefore, this junior is worried that before this junior can help senior refine the pills, this junior will be killed by others." "You mean, you want me to follow by your side and be your free thug?" How could an old monster like the Black Crow Venerable, who had lived for countless years, be so easy to fool? With a thought, he understood Tang Ao's idea. "I can protect you, but how many heaven essence pills can you refine for me?" As soon as he heard this, Tang Ao knew that there was a chance. Since there was a chance, the next step was to ask for a sky-high price. After a month, how about this junior refine a heaven essence pill for senior every day? This way, this junior will only need around 28 years to refine 10,000 heaven essence pills for senior. Moreover, after such a long time, if this junior's luck is not bad, I'll most likely be able to refine heaven essence pills for senior. For ordinary people, 28 years was not a short period of time. However, for martial artists, especially those with profound cultivation, it was possible for them to go into closed-door training for 100 years. For them, 20 years was nothing. 28 years is not long, but I don't have that much time to waste. How about this, you give me 5 heaven essence pills every day, and after 3 years, refine heaven essence pills for me. If you can't do it, I'll kill you. Senior, with this junior's ability, refining 1 heaven essence pill a day is already my limit. If I were to refine so many heaven essence pills a day, before this junior could refine enough pills for senior, I'm afraid that my vitality would dry up and I would die." In terms of cultivation, Tang Ao was far inferior to the Black Crow Venerable. However, in terms of bargaining, Tang Ao deliberately treated her like an ancestor. "In that case, 3 pills a day. You will refine 2, and your little girlfriend will refine 1. After pondering for a moment, the Black Crow Venerable pointed at Chu Shuahan beside Tang Ao and said, "Miss Chu is not an alchemist." Of course, Tang Ao would not compromise so easily. Moreover, Tang Ao did not believe that this old woman could tell whether someone was an alchemist or not. "Idiot! You have the legacy of the Shennong Emperor, you can just teach her how to refine pills. How can you be so selfish?" After the Black Crow Venerable finished speaking, without waiting for Tang Ao to speak, Chu Shuahan immediately said, "This junior is willing to refine pills for senior. Senior apprentice brother Tang Ao, please teach Shuahan well in alchemy in the future." Hearing this, Tang Ao was immediately speechless. Chu Shuahan obviously wanted to learn the legacy of the Shennong Emperor in alchemy, and take advantage of this matter to take advantage of it. "Senior, I can only refine 2 heaven essence pills for you a day at most. Otherwise, the vitality that we lost will not be replenished. In less than half a year, the 2 of us will also die." Refining 3 heaven essence pills a day was not a big problem for Tang Ao, but Tang Ao was now sure that the Black Crow Venerable did not know anything about alchemy. Moreover, bringing the Black Crow Venerable along was like asking a tiger for its skin. Chapter 1174. After hearing Tang Ao's words, the Black Crow Supremacy stared at Tang Ao with his turbid eyes, as though he was trying to read Tang Ao's true thoughts. However, to the Black Crow Venerable's disappointment, Tang Ao's eyes were very calm, without the slightest fluctuation. Therefore, the Black Crow Supremacy wasn't sure if Tang Ao was telling the truth. Alright, you will start refining elixirs for me in a month. However, I won't be following you for too long. I will leave this place in at most 2 months. The Black Crow Supremacy felt helpless. Although the Heaven Essence elixir couldn't cure her illness, it could alleviate or even suppress her symptoms with a large number of Heaven Essence elixirs. As long as the vitality in her body wasn't fading away, she could focus all her energy on cultivation and wouldn't have to think of ways to maintain her vitality. The Sage Dao meet was about to begin, and given her current cultivation level, she wouldn't stand much of a chance. Her Celestial Chaos Realm cultivation level might seem pretty good, but even at her peak, she would only be an average existence among the Celestial Chaos Realm experts. Dao Master experts definitely wouldn't miss out on the Sage Dao meet. Tang Ao didn't know what the Black Crow Supremacy was thinking or what the Sage Dao meet was. At this moment, Tang Ao was considering how he could leave this ancient battlefield immediately and raise his alchemy skills to the level of a Grade 1 alchemy master within a month. Tang Ao had a vague feeling that the reason he hadn't been able to sense the door to becoming a Grade 1 alchemy master was because of his cultivation level. Therefore, Tang Ao had to find a way to recover his cultivation level in the spiritual ice fruit forest as soon as possible. Compared to advancing to a Grade 1 alchemy master, recovering his cultivation level was Tang Ao's top priority. Senior, are we going to leave now? Tang Ao asked the Black Crow Supremacy. The two of you leave first. Bring the elixir pills to me in a month. I will follow you out then. Before obtaining the Heaven Essence elixir, the Black Crow Supremacy would need to constantly absorb vitality from the outside world to maintain his vitality. On this godly monarch battlefield, there was the Vitality Dao accumulation of godly monarch powerhouses. It was very easy for Black Crow Supremacy to survive here. Venerable Black Crow's remnant soul would soon perish if it followed Tang Ao and didn't have a powerful life force spiritual treasure to support it. Hearing Venerable Black Crow's words, Tang Ao's face turned bitter. Tang Ao originally planned to trick Venerable Black Crow into going out to deal with Lu Sanyuan and the others. But now that Venerable Black Crow insisted on not going out, Tang Ao had no other choice. However, Tang Ao still asked, with Senior's current state, what realm is a martial artist at? Humph, little thing, do you still want me to help you deal with your enemy? The moment Tang Ao asked, his thoughts were immediately seen through by Venerable Black Crow. However, the Black Crow Venerable still said, anything below the astral reaching realm is fine. But I will not take the initiative to help you kill. As long as your life is in danger, then I will help. Moreover, every time I help, you will have to give me 30 Heaven Essence elixirs. After Venerable Black Crow finished speaking, his body turned into a clump of black fog and disappeared. At the same time, Venerable Black Crow's voice came out from midair. 1 month later, as long as you step into this place, I will be able to sense it. After saying this, Venerable Black Crow's aura disappeared completely. Although he did not manage to trick Venerable Black Crow out, Tang Ao still felt a lot more at ease in his heart. This time, the most powerful martial artist who entered the Earth Bodhisattva Cemetery was Lei Lingyun, who was at the peak of life and death realm level 9. And Lei Lingyun really wanted the Heavenly Star art from him. Therefore, Lei Lingyun would come looking for him sooner or later. Chapter 1175. A purple thunderbolt streaked across the sky, traveling thousands of miles in an instant. On top of the purple thunderbolt, there was a young man and woman. The man had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, with a long sword tied to his back. The woman had a picturesque appearance and a slim figure, as though she was a fairy from a painting. This young man and woman were Tang Ao and Chu Xuan. 3 days ago, when the two left the ancient battlefield, they flew around the snowy plains. In the map that Tang Ao obtained, the spirit ice fruit forest was in a valley covered in snow, So Tang Ao guessed that the spirit ice fruit forest was in this region. But this snowy plains was also boundless, and Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan flew for a few days, but they still couldn't find that inconspicuous valley. With the little fox's help, Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan found quite a number of rare spiritual herbs and immortal spiritual herbs. Meep, meep. Just as Tang Ao rode the wind-thunder dark cloud over an ice lake, the little fox suddenly cried out in excitement. Seeing the little fox's behavior, Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan looked at each other, and they both understood that this little fellow must have found some treasure. But what made Tang Ao a little confused was that this ice lake was surrounded by martial artists. Why do these people feel so weird? Chu Shuahan looked down and asked with some doubt. There were quite a number of martial artists below, at least 300 people. These people's cultivation were all different, and their aura was a little strange. Let's watch from afar first, and see what they want to do. Tang Ao also felt that something was wrong. The group of martial artists in front of them ranged from Sea of Soul to Life and Death realm, but the aura they emitted was very strange. Seeing this situation, Tang Ao suddenly felt that it was a little familiar. A moment later, Tang Ao's heart jolted with shock. I understand, these are cultivators from other realms. Martial artists from other domains? Are they from the Black-Yellow continent? Chu Shuahan didn't know much about other domains, but she knew a little. No, although the bound of Yellow Continent and the Winter Plains are not in the same plane, they both belong to the bound of Yellow World. Therefore, although there were some differences between the martial artists of the Black-Yellow Continent and the martial artists of the Snow Plains, the difference was not huge. But look at these people. The way they circulate their spiritual energy is completely different from ours. That's why their aura is so strange. Tang Ao used his skypole eyes to scan the martial artists. Then why did the martial practitioners from the other realms come to Xitigarbha Cemetery? Did they also come to the Xitigarbha Cemetery to find treasures? Chu Shuahan asked with uncertainty. According to what my senior Gu Lingfeng said, the Xitigarbha Cemetery is a battlefield left behind by a battle between godkings. These people are probably here for the relics of godkings. However, I can't figure out how these people entered the Xitigarbha Cemetery. Could it be that there are other entrances to the Xitigarbha Cemetery? When Tang Ao and the others entered the Xitigarbha Cemetery, 9 Peak Life and Death Realm martial artists had worked together to tear a crack in the weakest part of the barrier. Although the 300 martial artists in front of him were not bad, and there was no lack of Life and Death Realm martial artists among them, compared to the Old Medicine King and the others, they were far inferior. Therefore, Tang Ao became more and more confused about how they had entered. Just as Tang Ao was puzzled, Tang Ao suddenly noticed a familiar figure. What's wrong? Chu Shuahan asked when she saw Tang Ao's surprised expression. Chapter 1176. Tang Ao thought for a moment and recalled that Zhou Yun had obtained a strange fan at that time. Tang Ao was able to determine that it was a divine weapon. As for how high the grade of the divine weapon was, Tang Ao had no idea. Moreover, Tang Ao discovered that Zhou Yun seemed to have a secret technique to change his aura. When Tang Ao first saw Zhou Yun's aura was no different from that of the martial practitioners of the icy plains. But now, Zhou Yun's aura had become the same as that of the foreign martial practitioners. Just as Tang Ao was looking at Zhou Yun from afar, Zhou Yun also opened his eyes. Taking out a star instrument, Zhou Yun said indifferently, "It's about time. It's time for the high priest to come over." After Zhou Yun finished speaking, the martial practitioners beside him also nodded. These people were all wearing silver armor and were Life and Death Realm powerhouses. One of them, a martial practitioner with a sinister scar on his face, said coldly, "Activate the array." There was an array here? Tang Ao was alarmed and hurriedly used his sky-polar eyes to look around. If he and Chu Shuahan had inexplicably barged into a large array, then he, as a peak 6th grade spirit array master, would be too useless. But even after Tang Ao used his sky polar eyes to look around for a long time, Tang Ao still didn't find any traces of an array. But at this time, Tang Ao suddenly discovered that the 360 martial practitioners were arranged according to a special position. Seeing this scene, Chu Shuahan didn't understand, but Tang Ao was quite shocked. Among these 300 martial practitioners there was no lack of life and death realm martial practitioners, but at this moment these life and death realm martial practitioners were abandoned, or rather, they were willing to sacrifice themselves. Chu Shuahan couldn't tell what they were doing, but Tang Ao knew that these people were sacrificing themselves for the array. A large array that required so many martial practitioners as sacrifices was simply unheard of for Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao knew that since this array formation required so many sacrifices, its might would definitely not be a small matter. At this moment, everyone suddenly stopped in unison. At the same time, a strong spatial ripple slowly spread out from the center of the lake. Is there something terrifying coming? Chu Shuahan's pretty face was a little nervous. The Xitigarbha cemetery was already dangerous enough. Chu Shuahan didn't expect to encounter such a thing in the Xitigarbha cemetery. Indeed, with so many people using their souls as sacrifices, it is very likely that it will be an astral-reaching realm warrior. Tang Ao wasn't very familiar with this array formation, but as a grade 6 spiritual array master, Tang Ao wasn't completely clueless about it. We can't stop this soul sacrifice array, but we can cause some damage. Destroy? How do I destroy it? Chu Shuahan was really struggling with regards to array formations. There are a total of 360 souls sacrificed in this formation, but the 36 people in the celestial dipper position are the key. If we can kill all of them within a second, then this array will most likely be broken. Tang Ao looked at the 36 warriors in the celestial dipper position and said. However, Tang Ao also knew that with his and Chu Shuahan's power, it would be impossible for them to do this. If the Black Crow Venerable was here, then they could try. Chu Shuahan shook her head. Even the weakest among them is a life and death realm level 2 martial practitioner. The two of us can't do it. Chapter 1177. Stop! Just as Tang Ao was thinking about how to kill that warrior, the person in the middle of the crowd suddenly raised his right hand, signaling for everyone to stop. He then said, "You guys go capture 3 life and death realm warriors nearby. The faster, the better." After Zhou Yun finished speaking, the 10 armored warriors beside him nodded at the same time. Then, their bodies flashed and disappeared. The activation of the array suddenly stopped, causing the 360 warriors who were performing the soul sacrifice to puke out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Their aura instantly weakened a lot, and some of the Sea of Souls realm warriors even wobbled a couple of times before falling to the ground. However, they quickly stood up again. From their eyes, Tang Ao could see a crazy obsession. Tang Ao did not know what these warriors wanted, but Tang Ao knew that if he could not cause some trouble for these crazy warriors, then he would not be able to find the spirit ice fruit anymore. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. A couple of wind-breaking sounds flashed over Tang Ao's head. Then, Tang Ao saw the 10 warriors who had just left return. Each of them had at least 1 life and death realm warrior in their hands, and at most, 3 life and death realm warriors. Tang Ao could tell that this person was only at the 3rd level of the life and death realm, and among the warriors he had captured, there were 2 at the 4th level of the life and death realm. "You are Zhou Yun of the Towering Rock Tribe? Zhou Yun, why are there so many people from your Towering Rock Tribe? I have never offended you before, so why did you capture me?" One of the captured 4th level life and death realm warriors seemed to know Zhou Yun. Facing his question, Zhou Yun only glanced at him coldly and said, "Leave these 3 4th level life and death realm martial artists. Kill the rest." Just as Zhou Yun's voice faded, the 10 silver-armored martial artists attacked without hesitation. With the sound of blades being unsheathed, these warriors' heads rolled onto the ground. Among the warriors who had been captured, only 3 4th-level life and death realm warriors were still alive. Zhou Yun, are you crazy? Can your towering rock tribe handle the anger of so many tribes? Let me go now, and I can pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, noisy! Before this martial artist could finish speaking, the silver-armored martial artist beside him punched him in the mouth with an iron fist. Instantly, several teeth flew out. Chu Xuehan had never seen such a terrifying scene before. She leaned against Tang Ao in fear. Tang Ao could also feel that Chu Xuehan was a little scared, so he stretched out his arm to hug Chu Xuehan, telling her not to be afraid. After Chu Xuehan's emotions calmed down a little, Tang Ao also released his arm. Chu Xuehan looked at Tang Ao. She wanted to say something but didn't say it. Tang Ao gestured for her to keep quiet, then took out the primordial sacred heavenly bow. If it was just now, Tang Ao did not have the confidence to kill that life and death realm second stage martial artist with the primordial sacred sky bow. But not long ago, Zhou Yun had ordered them to stop the array formation, and this cultivator had clearly suffered a severe backlash. At this moment, the aura around his body was very unstable, and his soul psyche was also very scattered. As Tang Ao stared at this martial artist, Zhou Yun once again gave the order to start the sacrificial array. The moment everyone started the sacrificial array, the 3 captured warriors immediately let out earth-shattering screams. Tang Ao used his sky polar pupils and saw traces of black chi penetrating through space and entering the bodies of these 3 warriors. Chapter 1178. At this moment, Tang Ao was not in a hurry to make his move, because Tang Ao knew that even if he killed that second-level Sea of Souls realm martial artist now, the other 10 martial artists in silver armor would be able to instantly fill up the empty spots. Therefore, even if Tang Ao wanted to make his move, he could only do it at the last moment of the great array. As long as he made his move at that moment, it would be the most effective. At the same time, if he made his move at that moment, Tang Ao would also be able to see what kind of horrifying existence these crazy guys had teleported over. At this moment, the 3 martial artists who had been captured had already stopped screaming. However, their auras were still growing stronger. Right now, their auras had already reached the 9th level of life and death realm, and there was no sign of it stopping. Seeing this, Tang Ao was a bit hesitant. The thing that was about to be teleported over was far more powerful than Tang Ao could imagine. That powerhouse did not descend with his own body. He only attached his divine sense to the 3 4th stage life and death realm martial artist. Yet, he was able to raise the cultivation base of the 4 4th stage life and death realm martial artists to the 9th stage life and death realm. Finally, the auras of the 3 martial artists completely disappeared, and their cultivation base had also increased to the astral reaching realm. After reaching the astral reaching realm, their bodies had also started to change. Their palms had slowly turned into a pair of sharp claws covered in scales and barbs, and their legs had also disappeared. Soon, their lower bodies had turned into a dragon tail. In an instant, the 3 human martial artists had turned into monsters with a human body and a dragon tail. However, these 3 flood dragon people all had their eyes tightly closed, and a pair of dragon horns had also slowly appeared on top of their head. The eyelids of the one in the front had even twitched a bit. Right at this moment, Tang Ao suddenly jumped up. At the same time, Tang Ao pulled the primordial sacred heaven bow into a full moon shape and shot an arrow at the dying second-level life and death realm martial artist. Tang Ao's arrow was extremely fast. A golden light flickered in the air, and it instantly appeared in front of the second-level life and death realm martial artist. In the blink of an eye, the second-level life and death realm martial artist only saw stars flash before his eyes, and then suddenly exploded with a bang. The instant the warrior's body exploded, the 3 flood dragon humans that were teleported here opened their eyes. However, when the 3 of them opened their eyes at the same time, they spat out a mouthful of blood. Along with this mouthful of blood, their cultivation bases, which were originally at the peak of the first layer of the astral-reaching realm, instantly weakened. Soon, they were at the peak of the 9th layer of the life and death realm. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao was overjoyed in his heart. However, Tang Ao did not dare to stay for too long. He immediately hugged Chu Shuahan, and then activated the wind thunder dark cloud with all his might to fly into the distance. Chase. Zhou Yuan's face was ashen as he stared at the Tang Ao duo. Their plan had originally been foolproof, and Zhou Yun had already checked the surroundings several times. But Zhou Yun had never imagined that at the last moment, there would be 2 ants hiding right under his nose. Although he had succeeded in the end, they had also caused him a great deal of trouble. At that moment, the people who had performed the soul sacrifice also collapsed one after another. In the end, they turned into wisps of black smoke that drifted towards the 3 flood dragon humans in the middle. After a long while, the auras of the 3 flood dragon humans finally stabilized. Seeing the 3 open their eyes again, Zhou Yun immediately knelt on one knee and said, "High Priest, this subordinate has failed in his duty. I am willing to accept punishment." Chapter 1179. Tang Ao carried Chu Shuahan as he urged the wind thunder nether cloud to fly. However, at this moment, Tang Ao felt a terrifying soul remembrance envelop his body. Without waiting for Tang Ao to do anything, Tang Ao felt his head buzz and his body feel like it was about to explode. Without Tang Ao's control, the wind thunder nether cloud also instantly disappeared. Although Chu Shuahan instantly grabbed Tang Ao and brought Tang Ao to flee into the distance, the 2 of them were still getting closer and closer to the silver-armored warrior chasing after them. However, the distance between the 2 of them and the silver-armored martial artist was getting closer and closer. The silver-armored martial artist's face was filled with rage, wishing that he could swallow Tang Ao alive. If it wasn't for Tang Ao's sudden interruption at the last moment, the 3 priests would have been able to descend here in their strongest state. That way, they would have quickly found the godly king's remains hidden here. If they found the godly king's remains, the rise of the evil dragon realm would be just around the corner. However, because of Tang Ao, the 3 priests' strength was greatly reduced. It was unknown how long they would have to search for the godly king's remains in this boundless Xitigarbha cemetery. In the air, just as Tang Ao was suffering from the soul remembrance enveloping him, the primal Chaos 6 light mirror on Tang Ao's body suddenly burst forth with a shocking power, instantly dispelling the soul remembrance enveloping Tang Ao. After the remembrance shackles were broken, the high priest's face changed. Soon after, he was overjoyed. This little thing has a trace of the godly king's aura. Although it isn't the godly king's remains, he must have obtained some treasure from the godly king. Tell Haritu that he must capture these 2 ants alive. After the primal Chaos 6 light mirror broke the soul remembrance shackles enveloping him, Tang Ao immediately felt his body lighten. Promptly, Tang Ao summoned the wind thunder nether cloud again and flew into the distance. However, when Tang Ao flew away, Tang Ao saw several rays of light flying in his direction. Tang Ao immediately scanned the area with his skypolarity eyes. Shortly after, Tang Ao saw that Lei Ming and the other 2 were flying towards him. Moreover, Lei Ming and the other 2 were also chasing someone, and the person they were chasing was someone Tang Ao knew. It was Lu Sanyuan, who had taken all the benefits in the dilapidated cave abode. Lu Sanyuan's speed wasn't slow, and it didn't take him long to arrive in front of Tang Ao. After seeing Tang Ao, Lu Sanyuan was overjoyed and immediately grabbed at Tang Ao. but Tang Ao was on guard against him. With a flash of wind thunder dark cloud, he appeared 300 meters away from Lu Sanyuan. At this time, Lei Ming and the other two also flew over. After seeing Lei Ming, Lu Sanyuan immediately said, "Second young master Lei, Tang Ao is here. I already said that I didn't kill Tang Ao. Now that I've found Tang Ao, please don't chase me anymore." Lei Ming naturally noticed Tang Ao, but before Lei Ming could react, Tang Ao immediately said, "Brother Lei, Brother Lu came at the right time. Let's deal with this person together." Seeing Tang Ao come to a stop, Hari Tu revealed a look of joy. However, it did not take long for Hari Tu to feel happy. Hari Tu then noticed that these people seemed to be in cahoots with each other. Moreover, their cultivation bases were not weak. Hari Tu immediately sent a request for help to the high priest, then took out a bone knife and slashed at the nearest Lu Sanyuan. Chapter 1180. Mr. Yu was the first to react. He immediately jumped out of the battle and said, "Please wait. That person has nothing to do with us." However, the three people who had rushed over did not listen to him. Instead, they all looked at Hari Tuesday. Hari Tu roared angrily, "Just now, I almost caught that brat. It was because of these four people that he escaped. Let's attack together and capture them, then go after that brat." Although Hari Tu looked rash, he was also very meticulous. Ever since Hari Tu saw Tang Ao run away, he knew that Tang Ao did not have a good relationship with these people. However, Hari Tu did not want to admit his mistake. Therefore, he could only make the best of it and fight to the death with Lei Ming and the others. The three people who rushed over didn't know what had just happened, but Hari Tu was usually honest and simple, so they naturally believed Hari Tu's words unconditionally. Therefore, each of them found an opponent, and the battle between the two sides was about to begin. Mr. Yu Tu was at the 7th level of the life and death realm. He was stronger than Hari Tu and the others. However, the martial artist that was holding him back was also not ordinary. Therefore, Mr. Yu Tu could not escape for a while. Lei Ming was at the 5th level of the life and death realm. He was the weakest in the group. At this moment, he was fighting the silver-armored martial artist in front of him. As for the battle here, Tang Ao did not know. However, Tang Ao felt very carefree. Just now, Lei Ming's group of 4 was blocking the path in front of them, and Hari Tu was chasing after them from behind. Originally, they were doomed to die. Fortunately, Tang Ao had an idea and borrowed Lei Ming's group of 4 to block Hari Tuesday. Tang Ao thought to himself, if Lei Ming and the other 3 accidentally killed Hari Tu, then it would be even more perfect. Moreover, Lei Ming and the other 3 were not weak. They were not easy to deal with. Therefore, the possibility of this happening was very high. If it was just Lei Ming and the other 3 fighting Hari Tu, then killing Hari Tu would not be a difficult task. But what Tang Ao didn't know was that after he left, Haritu also called for 3 helpers. Tang Ao brought Chu Shuahan and flew for a distance before landing in a mountain range. After finding a cave, Tang Ao and Lu Li entered the cave. After escaping from danger, the little fox also crawled out of Chu Shuahan's embrace. Then, the little fox jumped onto the ground and gestured to Tang Ao and Li Wuyo. But even after the little fox gestured for a long time, Tang Ao still didn't understand what it was gesturing for. Tang Ao did not understand, but Chu Shuahan had a rough idea. Chu Shuahan's beautiful eyes swiveled as she asked the little fox, "You're saying that there's a treasure beneath that frozen lake? Shall we go back and look for it?" Hearing Chu Shuahan's words, the little fox nodded in approval. It was obviously praising Chu Shuahan for being too smart to understand its meaning so quickly. But Chu Shuahan rolled her eyes at it. There were many powerful fellows there just now. If we go there to look for the treasure, we'll be finished, Chu Shuahan said as she knocked the little fox's head. But the little fox became anxious. It opened its 2 little paws and gestured again. Seeing the little fox's appearance, Chu Shuahan burst into laughter. Then she said to Tang Ao, "The little fellow said that there's a big treasure beneath the frozen lake. He wants us to sneak a look." Chapter 1181. Someone's Coming. Just as Tang Ao was about to discuss with Chu Shuahan, Tang Ao's sole remembrance suddenly detected a martial artist rushing towards this place. Seeing this martial artist, Tang Ao's expression turned to shock. Not long ago, Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan personally saw this martial artist being beheaded by a silver-armored martial artist. Yet, this martial artist had managed to escape here alive. Only, his aura was extremely weak, as if he had used some secret technique that consumed a lot of energy. Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan glanced at each other and walked out of the cave. Before this martial artist could react, Tang Ao's netherworld sword was already at his throat. "Senior, spare me, spare me." With the netherworld sword at his throat, this martial artist immediately begged for mercy. However, after seeing that it was Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan and not the 3 flood dragon people or the silver-armored martial artists, this person let out a slight sigh of relief. Tang Ao naturally knew what he was thinking. Promptly, Tang Ao said, "Don't be happy too early. I'll ask you a few questions, and you have to answer them truthfully. If you lie, I'll let you die a bit more thoroughly this time." This martial artist was only at the 6th level of the Spirit Sea realm. Even at his peak, he wasn't Tang Ao's opponent, let alone now. "Sir, just ask. I'll definitely tell you everything I know." This person had a shifty-eyed appearance, as if he was afraid of death. However, his eyes weren't honest. Although he was captured by Tang Ao, his eyes were constantly staring at Chu Shuahan's graceful figure. Chu Shuahan felt a bit uncomfortable being stared at and glanced at him. "Let me ask you. Just now, I clearly saw you get beheaded by a silver-armored martial artist. How are you still able to appear here?" After Tang Ao finished asking, Chu Shuahan didn't wait for this person to speak before suddenly speaking. "I know who he is." After speaking, Chu Shuahan looked at this person and said, "You're Nether Ghost Valley's undying ghost Lu Wen, aren't you?" After Chu Shuahan finished speaking, Lu Wen smiled bitterly. Then, his appearance changed, turning into a handsome young man. Seeing this, Chu Shuahan immediately smiled and said, "Brother Lu Wen, I didn't expect it to really be you." Seeming to know that Tang Ao did not know Lu Wen, Chu Shuahan immediately introduced him to Tang Ao. "It's just that Lu Wen of the Nether Ghost Valley, although he was born in the Nether Ghost Valley, what he did on the Winter Plains was robbing the rich to help the poor, punishing the evil and promoting the good. Because he was incompatible with the Nether Ghost Valley, he was expelled from the Nether Ghost Valley. Because of what he had done, many forces wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible, but they just couldn't kill him. Over time, he gained the title of the Undying Ghost." After listening to Chu Shuahan's introduction, Tang Ao felt that this Lu Wen was a bit interesting. He immediately put away the netherworld sword and at the same time undid the restriction array on Lu Wen's body. After Tang Ao undid the restriction array, although Lu Wen's aura was still very weak, his cultivation had already reached the 4th level of the life and death realm. Tang Ao took out a great lotus pill and handed it to Lu Wen. After receiving it, Lu Wen swallowed the pill without any hesitation. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground and began to adjust his breathing. After a while, Lu Wen's breathing gradually stabilized. Soon after, Lu Wen stood up and cupped his fists towards Tang Ao. "Brother Tang Ao, not long ago, you shot that arrow at the last moment. It was truly a huge contribution to the Winter Plains." Hearing Lu Wen's words, Tang Ao was a bit confused, but he could only listen to Lu Wen. Just now, those people came from a place called the Evil Dragon Realm. These people seem to have come here to find something. Moreover, they have already set up an array in a place called the Twin Wolf Valley. Soon, there will be even more evil dragon realm warriors coming to the Winter Plains. Those 3 flood dragon humans are experts from the evil dragon realm. Brother Tang Ao's last arrow destroyed their array, causing the 3 flood dragon humans' strength to greatly decrease. The speed at which they set up the array in the Twin Wolf Valley has also greatly decreased. This is all what I heard when I used the death substitution secret technique to hide there. Right now, I have to quickly think of a way to inform the experts of the Winter Plains outside. Chapter 1182. When we first entered the Xidagarba Cemetery, Senior Medicine King said that it would open again in 6 months. Even if we know this news now, we can't tell the outside world about the evil dragon realm's invasion. Tang Ao didn't have a deep understanding of the Xidagarba Cemetery, but he knew that it was surrounded by a powerful barrier. If they didn't break the barrier, they wouldn't be able to leave. Chu Shuahan agreed with Tang Ao's words, so she also looked at Luwen. She didn't know if Luwen had any special methods to leave this place. However, Luwen only smiled bitterly and said, Princess Qing Lin of the Voodoo Spectre tribe has a secret technique that allows her to communicate with the experts of the Voodoo Spectre tribe even in the Xidagarba Cemetery. In other words, as long as we find Lady Qing Lin, we can spread this news. Tang Ao understood what Luwen meant. At the same time, he also knew why Luwen smiled bitterly. Tang Ao had entered the Xidagarba Cemetery to search for the spiritual ice fruit forest, but he still hadn't found Qing Lin. How could it be easy to find a living person in the Xidagarba Cemetery? There were 9 regions in the Xidagarba Cemetery. Each region was vast and boundless. Who knew where Qing Lin was right now? I have some friendship with Princess Qing Lin. Lady Qing Lin most likely has a keepsake of mine. That way, as long as Lady Qing Lin is within 5,000 miles of me, I will be able to sense her. I'm going to look for Qing Lin and Gunyanji now. I hope we'll meet again in the future. Luwen cupped his fists towards the 2 of them and left. What do we do now? Chu Shuahan asked Tang Ao after Luwen left. Although Chu Shuahan didn't panic, she didn't know what to do. We have to find the spiritual ice fruit forest first. Once we find it, my cultivation will recover. Once my cultivation is restored, we won't be so passive in the Xidagarba Cemetery. After being together with Chu Shuahan for such a long time, Tang Ao had already regarded Chu Shuahan as a friend. Therefore, Tang Ao did not continue to hide the fact that he was seriously injured from Chu Shuahan. Chu Shuahan was somewhat surprised by Tang Ao's words. She then asked doubtfully, "You're injured?" But Tang Ao nodded affirmatively. "I went through a huge battle a year ago and damaged my foundation. Although my external injuries have healed, my spirit sea has yet to fully recover. By chance, I discovered that the wood ice fruit was somewhat beneficial to my injuries, but the effects were minimal. Therefore, I guess that the spirit ice fruit, which is 10 times more effective than the wood ice fruit, will most likely be able to heal my injuries." Chu Shuahan nodded her head. For some serious injuries that damaged the foundation, the wood ice fruit and spirit ice fruit were indeed miraculous. Back then, her great-grandfather had been plotted against, and his foundation had been damaged, turning him into a cripple. In the end, he had consumed the spirit ice fruit to recover. Tang Ao's current injuries were much lighter than her great-grandfather's. If they could find the spirit ice fruit in the Xidagarba Cemetery, Tang Ao might really be able to recover. Tang Ao Longchu's injuries were much lighter than her great-grandfather's. If they could find the spiritual ice fruit in the Xidagarba Cemetery, Tang Ao might really be able to recover. Moreover, Tang Ao's keen senses had captured 2 powerful auras. 2 experts were currently fighting each other. Chapter 1183. Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan knew this flood dragon expert. He was one of the 3 priests of the evil dragon realm. The 3 flood dragon chief priests that had descended from the evil dragon realm were very similar. The only difference was that the high priest had golden eyebrows, while the other 2 had white eyebrows and black eyebrows. The one fighting the giant lava bear was the black-browed priest. At the same time, Tang Ao also saw that the shocking battle between the 2 had attracted many nearby martial artists. When these martial artists saw the giant lava bear, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Heavens, what is that thing? It can actually fight against a peak life and death realm demonic flame bear king. Could it be some powerful demonic beast that has taken human form? A martial artist stared at the flood dragon priest and said, "Who cares what it is? When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Every scale of the demonic flame bear king is a treasure. We just need to follow from afar and get rich." Makes sense, makes sense. Tang Ao was not as optimistic as them. This demonic flame bear king might not have high intelligence, but the flood dragon priest was clearly not someone easy to deal with. When the flood dragon priest saw more and more martialists gathering around it, a sinister smile flashed across its face. Then, it spread its arms and a mystical wave spread in all directions. Many martial artists were confused after feeling this fluctuation, but Tang Ao's expression changed drastically. This is the soul sacrifice secret technique. Retreat. Tang Ao roared at the crowd and immediately left the range of the technique with Chu Shuahan. Some of the martial artists in the periphery also instantly retreated. A few powerful martial artists also quickly retreated from the range of the flood dragon priest's secret technique. However, there were still many unlucky martial artists within the range of the secret technique. Before these people knew what was going on, a huge array appeared under their feet. They immediately discovered that they had completely lost control of their bodies. Even their awakened life spirits could not be sensed. Just at this moment, a strange black spiritual power drifted out of the array and quickly drilled into the bodies of the warriors in the array. The moment the black spiritual power drilled into their bodies, these cultivators let out wails, as if they were being tortured. Tang Ao and the others were also shocked to find that as the black spiritual power poured into the bodies of these martial artists, their bodies were also changing rapidly. Tang Ao saw a body not far from him suddenly turn into a cloud of black mist. Then, with a wail, a huge dragon tail and 2 ferocious dragon claws stretched out of the black mist. In an instant, the human clan warrior had turned into a monster that was neither human nor ghost. After the first martial artist transformed into this appearance, many martial artists in the spirit array began to transform into this appearance one after another. However, after becoming such monsters, their eyes were empty and vacant, and they had stopped wailing. Just as everyone was wondering what would happen next, the flood dragon priest, who was fighting the demonic flame bear king, suddenly waved his sleeve and shouted, "Go!" Immediately after, these transformed flood dragon monsters pounced at the surrounding people. The few martial artists at the front who were scared silly did not even have time to react before their heads were crushed by the claws of the flood dragon monsters. Red and white blood flowed all over the ground. Tang Ao was not very close, but for some reason, one of the flood dragon monsters still pounced at Tang Ao. Chapter 1184. Facing the incoming flood dragon monster, Tang Ao instantly summoned the Azure Lotus Sword Soul. A green lotus blossomed in the air. The green lotus spun in the air and instantly transformed into 7 long swords flickering with resplendent green light. Tang Ao pointed with his finger and the Azure Lotus Sword also transformed into 7 streams of light that bombarded the flood dragon monster. Chu Shuahan released a ball of peach-colored flame. This ball of flame was very beautiful, as if it was harmless to humans and animals. However, the terrifyingly high temperature that it emitted told others that it was not as harmless as it looked. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The sound of a sharp blade piercing through cloth could be heard. Tang Ao's incomparably sharp azure lotus sword actually completely pierced through the flood dragon monster's body. However, the instant the azure lotus sword pierced through the flood dragon monster's body, the flood dragon monster seemed to turn into a ball of black mist. Tang Ao's azure lotus sword actually did not cause too much damage to it. This was the fireball that Chu Shuahan blasted out, and it also exploded on the flood dragon monster's body. After being blasted by the fireball, the flood dragon monster let out a mournful scream. This scream directly caused Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan's heads to buzz. When they recovered, the flood dragon monster was already howling as it fiercely clawed at Chu Shuahan's throat. Chu Shuahan immediately raised her sword to block, but Chu Shuahan's short sword was slapped away by the flood dragon monster's claw. Moreover, the monster's momentum did not decrease as it continued to claw at Chu Shuahan. Scram! Tang Ao instantly arrived in front of Chu Shuahan. A golden light flickered on his body, and a layer of golden armor instantly appeared. At the same time, Tang Ao also kicked out, hitting the flood dragon monster's chest. Tang Ao's sudden kick caused the flood dragon monster to stagger, but Tang Ao was sent flying back by the recoil. What a terrifying defense! After Tang Ao returned to Chu Shuahan's side, he looked at the flood dragon monster in shock. And let's be careful. Chu Shuahan nodded and summoned 9 balls of peach-colored flame in the surroundings. As Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan worked together to deal with a flood dragon monster, the other martial artists were also dealing with the flood dragon monster. Meanwhile, the black-browed priest was still locked in battle with the demonic flame bear king. In terms of strength, the hill-sized demonic flame bear king had the absolute advantage. However, the demonic flame bear king's intelligence was too low. None of the priest's attacks could hit the flood dragon priest. On the other hand, the flood dragon priest kept finding opportunities to inflict more injuries on the demonic flame bear king. However, the demonic flame bear king's skin was truly thick. No matter how the flood dragon priest attacked, the demonic flame bear king only suffered some superficial wounds. Trapped! On Tang Ao's side, Chu Shuahan formed a hand seal and 9 pink flames immediately appeared around the Dragonman monster. Following that, the 9 flames connected with each other and instantly formed a flame barrier that trapped the Dragonman monster. The dragon-human monster tried to break through the flame barrier, but it let out a strange cry as it was burned by the terrifying heat of the flames. Beautifully done! Seeing this scene, Tang Ao praised and immediately took out the primordial sacred heaven bow. All along, the primordial sacred heaven bow had been Tang Ao's strongest offensive method. However, using the primordial sacred heaven bow consumed too much of Tang Ao's energy. Therefore, he needed to achieve a one-hit kill effect. Now that the flood dragon monster was trapped by Chu Shuahan, if Tang Ao still failed to hit the flood dragon monster, Tang Ao could throw away the primordial sacred heaven bow. Chapter 1185. Purng! Like a black firework exploding in the night sky, Tang Ao's arrow blasted the flood dragon person monster into a black fog that filled the sky. Soon after, the black mist slowly gathered together once more. Not long after, the black mist transformed back into the appearance of the cultivator it had first appeared in. However, this martial artist was already dead, and his death was extremely miserable. After Tang Ao showed his prowess and killed a flood dragon monster, Tang Ao didn't even have the time to rejoice before he thought, "Not good." Sure enough, just as this thought flashed through Tang Ao's mind, a martial artist from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing flew toward Tang Ao. "Friend, your divine weapon is not bad. It would be such a waste for it to be in your hands. Why don't you sell it to me?" Jing Fengyu said he would sell it, but his hand was already grabbing toward Tang Ao's primordial sacred sky bow. However, before Jing Fengyu could grab the primordial sacred sky bow, his hand was knocked back by a cane. "Jing family's brat, first come, first serve. I have my eyes on this bow. Little friend, name your price. A skinny martial artist wearing linen clothes and a bamboo hat appeared like a ghost in front of Tang Ao. Although he didn't try to rob it like Xing Fengyu, the aura on his body locked onto Tang Ao. Moreover, this aura had a vague, oppressive feeling. If Tang Ao was only a normal 4th level Sea of Souls realm warrior, he would have already been pressed down by this horrifying aura. Piss off! This person used his aura to oppress Tang Ao. If Tang Ao treated him nicely, then Tang Ao wouldn't be Tang Ao anymore. This elder in linen clothes was at the 3rd level of life and death realm. After Tang Ao told him to piss off, he was dazed for a second. Obviously, he didn't expect a 4th level Sea of Souls realm brat to be so rude to him. Bastard, this old man will teach you how to respect your elders. As the old man spoke, he reached out to grab Tang Ao. However, just as he stretched out his hand, there was a flash of lightning in front of him. Then, Tang Ao, who had been enveloped by his aura, was already 300 feet away. After dodging the old man's attack, Tang Ao did not stop and immediately brought Chu Shuahan away. Unlike the others, Tang Ao did not have many thoughts about the fiery demon Bear King. Compared to the fiery demonic Bear King, Tang Ao obviously wanted to find the spirit ice fruit forest more. However, it was not that easy for Tang Ao to leave. A handsome warrior in white robes suddenly appeared in front of Tang Ao. Moreover, this person did not waste any words. As he intercepted Tang Ao, he swept out with his spear, forcing Tang Ao back. Tang Ao, be careful. This is Li Chunfeng of the Lightning Temple. He is very powerful. Seeing the white-robed youth, Chu Shuahan cautiously reminded Tang Ao. Even if Chu Shuahan did not say anything, Tang Ao knew that this Li Chunfeng was not easy to deal with. Tang Ao was only at the 4th level of the Sea of Souls realm, but this Li Chunfeng was at the 6th level of the Life and Death realm. Just now, Tang Ao had dodged Li Chunfeng's attack in time. However, right now, Tang Ao still felt a stinging pain on his face. It was caused by Li Chunfeng's silver spear. I am not interested in that bow of yours. Give me the heavenly star art, and I will not make things difficult for you. Although Li Chunfeng's tone was calm, a hint of passion flashed through his eyes. Although he was not the Lightning Temple's disciple with the surname Lei, he had also trained in the 5 Thunder Art. After training in the 5 Thunder Art, he naturally knew how powerful it was. It was rumored that the second half of the 5 Thunder Art was with Tang Ao. He was worried that he would not be able to find Tang Ao, but he did not expect to run into him here. Chapter 1186. Tang Ao was gambling. He was betting that Li Chunfeng, Lei Ming, and Lei Lingyun were not the same kind of people. This way, Li Chunfeng would not know whether he was speaking the truth or not. In fact, Tang Ao's gamble was correct. In the Lightning Temple, Li Chunfeng refused to submit to either Lei Lingyun or Lei Ming. He had his own ambition. He wanted to become the next Lightning Temple Lord. Li Chunfeng, a disciple with a different surname, dared to go against Lei Lingyun and Lei Ming in the Lightning Temple. Other than his powerful cultivation, he was also very quick-witted. As soon as Tang Ao finished speaking, Li Chunfeng immediately said coldly, "If you don't hand over the heavenly star art, I can only do it myself. Lei Lingyun is a peak life and death realm expert. If he finds you, do you think you'll still be alive?" Even though his lie was exposed, Tang Ao did not panic. "You have already seen how I escape. The heavenly star art is in Lei Lingyun's hands. Even if you kill me, you can forget about obtaining the heavenly star art." However, at this point, Tang Ao stopped abruptly and did not continue. "But what?" Li Chunfeng did not beat around the bush with Tang Ao and asked directly. "I've looked through the heavenly star art. If you kill these two, I can make a copy for you." Tang Ao pointed at the old man and Xing Fengyu not far behind him. After Tang Ao was stopped by Li Chunfeng, the two chased after him. However, the two obviously knew Li Chunfeng. Therefore, when they saw that Li Chunfeng had designs on Tang Ao, they did not come over. That's easy. Hearing that Tang Ao only had this little request, Li Chunfeng did not even think and swept his spear at the old man. Li Chunfeng, are you crazy? If you want the treasure on this brat, just kill him. Why do you have to make things difficult for me? The old man shouted as he retreated. Tang Ao didn't expect Li Chunfeng to be conceited to such an extent. At the instant Li Chunfeng attacked the hemp-clothed old man, Tang Ao didn't hesitate to execute the wind thunder nether cloud, bringing Chu Shuahan along as he flew far away. Li Chunfeng also reacted quickly, flipping his hand and throwing the spear in his hand towards Tang Ao. It was just that this time, he had clearly underestimated the speed of the tempest nether cloud. A bolt of purple lightning flashed in midair, and Tang Ao and Li Chunfeng instantly disappeared from Li Chunfeng's sight. Li Chunfeng instantly enveloped the area with his soul remembrance. His powerful soul remembrance was only able to faintly capture the figures of Tang Ao and the other person. Moreover, because the wind thunder dark cloud was too fast, Tang Ao quickly escaped the range of his soul remembrance. At this moment, Li Chunfeng did not dare to hesitate. He immediately chased after Tang Ao. It was just that even though his speed was not slow compared to the wind thunder nether cloud, it was still insufficient to look at. Even if Li Chunfeng chased with all his strength, the distance between him and Tang Ao was constantly being pulled apart. Not long after, Tang Ao and the other person had already disappeared from his soul remembrance's range. Li Chunfeng very angrily roared towards the sky, scaring a few of the weaker demonic beasts nearby into lying on the ground, not daring to move. However, Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan did not have the chance to see this scene. Tang Ao brought Chu Shuahan all the way until Tang Ao's soul remembrance could no longer detect Li Chunfeng. Only then did Tang Ao stop. In Tang Ao's opinion, his soul remembrance was unable to detect Li Chunfeng. Even if Li Chunfeng's cultivation was stronger than his soul remembrance definitely wasn't much stronger than his. Therefore, escaping to this distance was barely safe. However, before Tang Ao could relax, a stone mountain in front of Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan suddenly exploded. Subsequently, Tang Ao saw two figures behind the stone mountain. Chapter 1187. The two of them, who were fighting, naturally saw Tang Ao. Immediately, their faces lit up with joy. Lei Lingyun's body flickered with lightning and a vast sea of lightning formed behind him. As he forced back the flood dragon priest with his scarlet thunder halberd, a silver lightning ring flew toward Tang Ao. This silver lightning ring seemed to be a rather powerful divine weapon. When it flew toward Tang Ao felt the flow of spiritual power in his body become somewhat sluggish, as if there was a mysterious suppressive fluctuation that wanted to completely suppress and imprison his power. Moreover, this was not the end. After Lei Lingyun threw the lightning ring, the flood dragon priest instantly summoned a pitch-black magic sphere cage next to Tang Ao. The magic sphere cage emitted a terrifying suction force as if it wanted to suck Tang Ao into the magic sphere. Lei Lingyun and Jian Xiaotian's cultivation bases far surpassed Tang Ao's to begin with. Thus, when the two of them attacked Tang Ao at the same time, Tang Ao instantly became incapable of moving. Additionally, a tearing pain spread through his body. Tang Ao! Chu Shuahan cried out in alarm and was about to come over to help Tang Ao. Don't come over! Tang Ao hastily stopped Chu Shuahan. Although Chu Shuahan's cultivation was at the first layer of life and death realm and was a bit stronger than him, she would not be able to help against Lei Lingyun and the flood dragon priest. However, Chu Shuahan did not listen to Tang Ao and stubbornly went over to Tang Ao's side. After arriving at Tang Ao's side, Chu Shuahan was immediately placed under Lei Lingyun's lightning ring and flood dragon priest's justice sphere. Chu Shuahan's pretty face immediately paled. Although her cultivation was higher than Tang Ao's, her ability to endure pain was clearly far inferior to Tang Ao's. However, with Chu Xuehan sharing some of the pressure on Tang Ao was barely able to move. After regaining his mobility, Tang Ao immediately summoned the Shenong Arch. At the same time, he bombarded the silver lightning ring above his head. When Tang Ao used the Shenong Emperor to attack Lei Huan felt as though he was being provoked. In an instant, a waterfall of lightning poured down on Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan. That terrifying might was a declaration of destruction and death to anything that stood in its way. After feeling the terrifying pressure of the lightning ring, Chu Xuehan had already recognized what this lightning ring was. In the lightning temple, there were 5 treasures that were extremely powerful. Among them, there was a lightning hoop-shaped treasure called the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop. However, it was rumored that the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop had always been in the possession of the Lightning Hall Master. Hence, Chu Xuehan had never imagined that the item that Lei Lingyun had casually taken out to deal with Tang Ao would actually be such a powerful item. Chu Xuehan had heard from the old Medicine King that the Lightning Hall Master had once used this 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop to kill a Grade 7 Shadow Beast. Although there was no way to verify this, it was enough to show how powerful the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop was. And now, she and Tang Ao were facing this abnormally terrifying 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop. But what Chu Xuehan did not expect was that the medicine cauldron that Tang Ao had thrown out actually did not fall into a disadvantage against such a top-notch killing weapon like the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop. In fact, it even seemed as though it was going to break through it. Seeing this scene, Chu Xuehan's face lit up with joy. Immediately, Chu Xuehan cut open her palm and slapped out a bright red mysterious pattern in the air. The mysterious pattern changed in the air, and a lot of Chu Xuehan's essence blood was absorbed by it. Chu Xuehan's aura instantly weakened. Chapter 1188. Tang Ao couldn't help but worry when he saw Chu Xuehan's pale complexion. Fortunately, Chu Xuehan's secret technique was quite powerful even though it consumed a lot of energy. Suddenly, a cry could be heard in the air. With a soft cry, the 3-legged firebird Chu Xuehan summoned flapped its wings and pounced toward the black orb summoned by the Flood Dragon High Priest. The 3-legged flame bird appeared insignificant in front of the pitch-black magic ball. It was like a moth flying into a flame. However, reality did not develop as expected. After the 3-legged flame bird, bathed in golden flames, flew towards the huge magic ball summoned by the Flood Dragon Priest, it suddenly took a deep breath and spat out a huge, explosive, and scorching fireball. The moment the fireball appeared, the surrounding temperature suddenly rose and an aura of destruction spread out. In an instant, the fireball became the same size as the black magic ball summoned by the Flood Dragon High Priest and fiercely collided with it. Rumble, boom, boom. Suddenly, the black magic ball summoned by the Flood Dragon High Priest exploded. The huge fireball spat out by the 3-legged flame bird also exploded. The entire space instantly turned into a sea of fire. The surrounding mountain range also ignited with raging flames. Flames soared in the air and black mist rolled back. It was a shocking scene. After breaking through the barrier of the Flood Dragon High Priest's magic ball, Chu Xuehan could no longer hold on. She vomited a mouthful of blood and fainted. Tang Ao hastily stepped forward and caught Chu Xuehan. At the same time, he instantly activated the spatial talisman he had prepared. "He's trying to escape," the Flood Dragon High Priest said anxiously after sensing the spatial ripples around Tang Ao. On the other hand, Lei Lingyun's reaction was much faster than Tang Ao's. The moment the space around Tang Ao fluctuated, Lei Lingyun pressed his palm down and the 9-dragon lightning rings in the air burst out with a shocking might. 9 bucket-thick purple lightning bolts erupted from the 9-dragon lightning rings and fiercely struck the Shenong cauldron. Although the grade of the farmer god cauldron was not inferior to the 9 dragon lightning rings, the difference between Tang Ao and Lei Lingyun was too great. The farmer god cauldron only managed to resist for a moment before it was blasted into Tang Ao's body by the terrifying lightning. Without the obstruction of the Shennong Emperor, the 9 bolts of lightning that emitted boundless power blasted towards Tang Ao and his companion, who had yet to be teleported away. These 9 thunderbolts were incomparably powerful, and Tang Ao could feel an aura of death. However, at this moment, Tang Ao had no means to block the lightning. All he could do was summon the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul and use his body to protect Chu Xuan. Boom! The violent lightning instantly struck Tang Ao's Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. The Battle Sage Bone Life Soul was already a very powerful life soul with 29 days of life soul strength. However, as Tang Ao's cultivation level was too low, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul could only unleash less than 30% of its might. Therefore, under the terrifying bombardment of the 9 dragon lightning rings, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul only managed to withstand it for an instant before shattering into specks of light and shrinking back into Tang Ao's body. After shattering the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, the 9 thunderbolts struck Tang Ao without any obstruction. Instantly, Tang Ao felt his back lose feeling. This was the result of his flesh and bones being reduced to ashes by the lightning. If someone was behind Tang Ao, they would be able to see the terrifying wound on Tang Ao's body. Chapter 1189. Millions of li away, on a cliff, 2 figures suddenly appeared in the air. The 2 had already lost consciousness. After appearing in the air, they fell down the cliff like red leaves in the wind. At this height, if the 2 fell down, even if they were martial artists with high cultivation base, they would still feel dizzy, not to mention that their auras were very weak. These 2 were naturally Tang Ao and Chu Xuan. After floating in the air for a while, Chu Xuan's beautiful eyelashes fluttered twice, then she opened her eyes weakly. After opening her eyes, Chu Xuan saw Tang Ao, who was on the verge of death. Seeing that hideous wound on Tang Ao's back, Chu Xuan was very anxious. She wanted to stop her body and take out some medicinal pellets to save Tang Ao. However, at this moment, there was not the slightest bit of spirit power in her body. Even moving her body was very difficult. Not long ago, she used that secret art to summon a golden 3-legged flame bird. Although that 3-legged flame bird did not have the horrifying aura of the 3-legged golden crow, in fact, it was indeed a young 3-legged golden crow. Facing a top expert like the Flood Dragon Chief Priest, Chu Xuan really did not know what to do other than this all-out secret art. However, with Chu Xuan's current cultivation base, forcefully summoning a 3-legged golden crow was also very frightening. Although that 3-legged golden crow was only a young 3-legged golden crow, Chu Xuan's spirit power and soul remembrance were instantly sucked dry. Even her meridians and internal organs were damaged. This technique to summon the 3-legged golden crow was recorded in her bloodline. At the beginning of her cultivation, Chu Xuan knew that before reaching astral reaching realm, she could not use this secret art. And right now, she was only at the first layer of life and death realm. If she used this secret art, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chu Xuan slightly turned her head and saw the bottomless abyss below the canyon. Chu Xuan glanced at Tang Ao, then said in a low voice, "Are we going to die here? Perhaps dying here is not that bad." The cold wind whistled past their ears, and not long after, Tang Ao and Chu Xuan fell from a height of tens of thousands of feet, right above the cliff. If Chu Xuan could still move, what she wanted to do the most right now was to carry Tang Ao and fly to the cliff. Then, she could heal Tang Ao. In fact, if she could use soul remembrance, she could release the small fox from the spirit beast bag and have the small fox fly her and Tang Ao to the cliff. But what made Chu Xuan helpless was that other than blinking her eyes, she couldn't do anything else. Chu Xuehan had also thought that she might die one day, but she didn't expect this day to come so quickly. At this moment, Chu Xuehan did not think too much. She only felt a little relaxed. Although she didn't feel that living was tiring, she even felt that life was very exciting and warm. But after falling, perhaps it was really easy. Chu Xuehan wanted to reach out and grab Tang Ao's hand, but her body had lost all feeling. A bitter smile appeared on her face, and Chu Xuehan closed her eyes, quietly waiting for the end of her life. But at this moment, a martial artist in black suddenly flew over from the cliff. This martial artist's cultivation was very weak, only at the 9th layer of body refining realm. But his movements were very agile. Chapter 1190. It wasn't that he didn't want to save Tang Ao, but that his strength was limited. In this situation, if he saved both Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan, he would be in danger. Secondly, his soul remembrance had swept over Tang Ao. Tang Ao had many fatal wounds and was currently in a half-dead state. Although he was shocked at Tang Ao's tenacious life force, he knew that even if he saved Tang Ao would still die. Therefore, Lu Xingjin didn't take the risk to save Tang Ao. In reality, there was another reason in Lu Xingjin's heart, and it was mostly because of this reason that Lu Xingjin didn't save Tang Ao. Although Lu Xingjin didn't understand why Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan would fall off the cliff with their last breaths, when Lu Xingjin had used his soul remembrance to look over, he had seen Chu Xuehan's beauty and was instantly shocked. Lu Xingjin simply couldn't believe that there was such a beautiful woman in this world. Moreover, when Lu Xingjin saw Chu Xuehan look at Tang Ao with gentle eyes, he knew that Chu Xuehan and Tang Ao's relationship wasn't shallow. Because of this, Lu Xingjin naturally didn't want to save Tang Ao. After Chu Xuehan was grabbed by the arm by Lu Xingjin, she immediately opened her eyes. Chu Xuehan really wanted to tell Lu Xingjin to save Tang Ao, but before she could say anything, Tang Ao disappeared from their sight. Lu Xingjin also dragged Chu Xuehan up the cliff. However, before Lu Xingjin even reached the cliff, a middle-aged woman jumped down from the cliff. She grabbed Lu Xingjin with one hand and hugged Chu Xuehan with the other, bringing the two of them back to the top of the cliff. After returning to the top of the cliff, the middle-aged woman gave Chu Xuehan, who was in her arms, to the servant girl beside her, before abruptly slapping Lu Xingjin's face. "Mother! Why did you hit me?" Lu Xingjin was immediately stunned by Madame Lu's slap. This middle-aged woman was Lu Xingjin's birth mother. Madame Lu snorted coldly, "I've never seen you so warm-hearted usually. This time around, you're willing to throw away your life the moment you see a little lass. This is the River of Forgetfulness Cliff. Not to mention that you are only in the 9th level of the body refining realm, even the legendary origin realm would have no chance of survival if they fell from here." After Madame Lu finished speaking, she glanced at Chu Xuehan. In her heart, she was a little surprised at how this girl was born to be so beautiful. When she was young, Mrs. Lu was also known as the #1 beauty of the Flying Star continent. However, even she paled in comparison to Chu Xuehan when she was young. After seeing how beautiful Chu Xuehan was, Madame Lu more or less understood why Lu Xingjin would take such a huge risk to save Chu Xuehan. "Ding Xiang, take good care of this young lady. Also, order people to look for the young man's corpse at the bottom of the cliff and bury it properly." Even though Madame Lu arrived later than Lu Xingjin, she had also noticed Tang Ao's fall from the cliff. Even though Madame Lu said these words to the servant girl, Tang Ao's words were meant for Chu Xuehan to hear. What he meant was that Tang Ao was already dead, and that Chu Xuehan's heart should no longer worry about Tang Ao in the future. Madame Lu was an experienced person. Naturally, she could see the longing in Chu Xuehan's eyes for Tang Ao. In the past, Lu Xingjin was completely obsessed with the martial way, and did not care for the young ladies of the various families. Since he had taken a fancy to a girl this time, as a mother, she naturally had to help her son. Chapter 1191. At this moment, Tang Ao's consciousness was very hazy and he couldn't feel his body at all. Tang Ao could faintly feel that he was floating in a river for a very long time. At this moment, there seemed to be a boat approaching him. However, Tang Ao didn't know what kind of boat it was or who was on it. At this moment, Tang Ao's last remaining strand of soul was exhausted. Tang Ao's consciousness once again fell into a state of chaos. "Miss, look. There seems to be a person floating in the river." Next to Murong Xian, a 16 or 17-year-old servant girl pointed at Tang Ao, who was drifting about in the river as she spoke. "All right. Chiu Yun, go and see if he's still alive. If he's still alive, rescue him onto the boat." Murong Xian glanced at Tang Ao, who was bobbing up and down in the water, and said in a calm voice. She was born with special eyes and her eyesight was far beyond that of an ordinary person. Even a martial artist at the pinnacle of the body refining realm would not be able to compare to her eyesight. Therefore, Murong Xian could tell that Tang Ao's condition was very bad. His entire body was pale, and it was obvious that he had been floating in the water for a very long time. Moreover, the life force on Tang Ao's body was so weak that it was hard to detect. Therefore, Murong Xian wasn't sure if Tang Ao was still alive. After receiving Murong Xian's approval, Chiu Yun walked briskly to the bow of the boat. She then rolled up her sleeves and leaped lightly. Like a nimble swallow, she flew towards Tang Ao. Along the way, Chiu Yun's figure lightly tapped the river's surface 3 times. Not only did she not fall into the water, but she also borrowed the force to soar. It was too early now and there was no one around the river of forgetfulness. If there was anyone around, they would have recognized that Chiu Yun had just used the Murong family's unique Qinggong technique, traceless snow steps. Chiu Yun's figure rose and fell a few times on the river's surface before she arrived next to Tang Ao. After seeing Tang Ao, Chiu Yun cried out, "Ah!" Although Chiu Yun was already at the 3rd level of the body refining realm and had seen her fair share of scenes, Tang Ao's current state really scared this little girl. At that moment, although Tang Ao's back had recovered a little under the healing of the jade bone life soul, it still looked ferocious and terrifying. Although she was shocked by Tang Ao's injury, Chiu Yun quickly recovered. She grabbed Tang Ao's arm and carried Tang Ao on her shoulder. Immediately after, he used his movement technique and brought Tang Ao back to the pleasure boat. After handing over Tang Ao to the other 2 attendants, Chiu Yun leaned on the railing and panted heavily. "My lady, this person is really heavy. Also, his injuries are very serious." Chiu Yun panted as she spoke to Murong Xian. Murong Xian glanced at Tang Ao. At that moment, Tang Ao's face was a little pale. His eyes were slightly closed and the wound on his back was very frightening. Murong Xian reached out her slender, jade-like hand and held Tang Ao's wrist. She then checked Tang Ao's pulse. "He's still alive but his injuries are very serious. Give him a rejuvenation pill. When he wakes up, ask him if he has any last wishes." Actually, Tang Ao had already woken up. Although he was weak, he was still a life and death realm cultivator. When someone approached him, Tang Ao could immediately sense it. When he realized that the person approaching him wanted to save him, Tang Ao was very grateful and did not think too much about it. When he heard Murong Xian's words, Tang Ao almost laughed out loud. Chapter 1192. "Miss, did you say to give him the 3-star miracle rejuvenation elixir?" A male martial artist carrying Tang Ao asked in disbelief. The Faixing continent was a continent where martial arts were extremely backward. The elixirs here were categorized into 9 stars. 1-star elixirs were the most common, while 9-star elixirs were the most precious. However, Even the most common one-star elixir was not something that could be afforded by ordinary people. Put this 3-star elixir on my account. Murong Xian nodded lightly. 3-star elixir? Tang Ao was very confused. He did not know where the spatial jade talisman had transported him to. Tang Ao only knew that a pinnacle grade 6 spatial jade talisman would definitely be able to transport him and Chu Shuahan a very long distance. Tang Ao did not know if he was still in the Xidagarba cemetery. Sensing that the cultivation of the surrounding martial artists was very low, Tang Ao thought that he should have been transported out of the Xidagarba cemetery by the spatial jade talisman. Moreover, Tang Ao was very satisfied with this place, because there was almost no spiritual energy in the heaven and earth here. There would not be 2 strong martial artists in this place. Tang Ao sensed that the cultivation of the surrounding martial artists were all at the body refining realm. The little girl who had saved him was at the 3rd level of the body refining realm, and the little beauty who had taken his pulse was at the 4th level. Apart from the 2 of them, the rest of the martial artists on the boat were basically at the 1st to 2nd level of the body refining realm. In fact, Tang Ao realized that most of the people on the boat were ordinary people with strong bodies. However, their gazes revealed a sense of inferiority. Clearly, they knew that even if they were lucky enough to work on the boat, they were still the lowest existences on the boat as they were not martial artists. In the world of martial arts, the strong were respected. This was an unchanging iron law. Naturally, Tang Ao did not know what these people were thinking. At this moment, Tang Ao was being carried by 2 martial artists to a guest room. This kid is really lucky. Miss actually took a 3-star miracle rejuvenation elixir from her account and gave it to him. After carrying Tang Ao into the room, the 2 cultivators did not leave immediately. Instead, they whispered to each other in the room. Hee, what ability does this kid have to be able to enjoy a 3-star spirit pill? How about we brothers? The cultivator didn't finish his words and instead looked at his companion with a smile that wasn't a smile. The martial artist on the other side naturally understood what he meant. Fang Zheng and Tang Ao were unconscious and on the verge of death. Even if the 2 of them took the 3-star spirit pills for themselves, no one would know. Alright, we'll each take half a pill. I heard that this rejuvenation pill is a top-grade healing pill. If you prepare half a pill on you, you will have half a life. Why are you still here? Are you here to take care of him? As the 2 of them were whispering, Qiu Yun's voice traveled over. Yes, we are here to look after this young master. Sister Qiu Yun is here to give him the pill, right? Leave this small matter to us brothers. We will feed it to him in a while. Although Qiu Yun was much younger than them, she was the personal servant of Miss Fang and had a very strong cultivation level. Therefore, the 2 of them didn't feel that there was anything wrong with calling Qiu Yun sister. After all, Qiu Yun was a little girl. How would she know that the 2 of them were going to take the pill for themselves? After smiling sweetly, Qiu Yun took out a jade bottle and handed it to Lu Zhuang. Lu Zhuang and Lu San looked at each other, and there was a meaningful smile hidden in their eyes. Chapter 1193. Although Tang Ao had his eyes closed, after boarding the boat, Tang Ao was awake. Tang Ao realized that there was a very low-grade spirit gathering array on the boat. Therefore, when Tang Ao boarded the boat, he felt that the surrounding spirit energy was slightly denser. Tang Ao had the 9-Dragon Emperor Jade body. After recovering a bit, Tang Ao's body was like a sponge, greedily absorbing the surrounding spirit energy. Although there wasn't much spirit energy after accumulating, it was barely enough for the Jade Bone Life Soul to circulate. Under the healing of the Jade Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao had recovered some strength. However, Tang Ao was still lying on the boat without moving. Although he could absorb and refine spirit energy, Tang Ao's cultivation wasn't even at the first stage of the body refining realm. Tang Ao sensed his own body. Tang Ao knew that his injuries this time were worse than when he escaped to the snow plain. However, the only thing slightly better was that Tang Ao's spirit ocean wasn't completely shattered. It seemed that after the previous injury, the toughness of his spirit ocean had increased. Moreover, Tang Ao's 108 meridians had all been shattered, but this time, he still had 3 meridians that could be used. No, this isn't spirit energy. At the start, Tang Ao just kept absorbing the spirit energy from the outside. However, as Tang Ao gradually recovered, Tang Ao realized that the surrounding space wasn't spirit energy, but a special energy that Tang Ao didn't know about. At that moment, Tang Ao sensed that Lu Zhuang and Lu Zhuang had cut the pills that Qiu Yun had given them into half and kept half each. Tang Ao scanned with his soul remembrance and saw the pill. Tang Ao recognized this pill. It was a low-grade 1 spirit pill, the spring returning pill. Even if such a thing was given to Tang Ao would never eat it. Seeing the two of them carefully putting away the pills like thieves, Tang Ao only felt that it was funny. After the two of them put away the pills, they looked around for a while. Then, they glanced at Tang Ao and left. As for taking care of Tang Ao, the two of them didn't have the mood to do so. How could they take care of a half-dead person? Tang Ao did not need the two to take care of him. After the two left, Tang Ao immediately got up and sat cross-legged. As the ancient God-moving sky technique was activated, the indescribable and mysterious power in the surroundings surged towards Tang Ao. Tang Ao sensed it carefully and found that this ability was not inferior to spiritual energy at all. If one really wanted to make a comparison, the energy contained in spiritual qi was at least 1,000 times that of this kind of energy. After investigating the special energy in the surroundings, Tang Ao did not continue to absorb the aura in the surrounding space. Instead, he took out a piece of top-quality spirit stone and prepared to absorb the pure spiritual power in the spirit stone. However, what shocked Tang Ao was that the moment he took out the spirit stone, it immediately turned into a pile of powder. The pure spiritual power in the spirit stone also assimilated into the special aura in the surrounding space and disappeared. I can't use spiritual power in this place. Then why can I absorb the special energy in the surrounding space? Tang Ao was very confused. However, it did not take long before Tang Ao understood. The 9-Dragon Emperor Jade Body could contain the foundation of all Daos. No matter what kind of power, the 9-Dragon Emperor Jade Body could sense and absorb it. Chapter 1194. In a simple cabin on the lower level of the boat, Tang Ao sat cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed. Today was the 3rd day that Tang Ao had been here. Although Tang Ao had the 9 Dragons Emperor's Jade Body and could absorb the Yuan Qi in this place, Yuan Qi and Spirit Qi were simply incomparable. If Spiky Shell Tang Ao was in a place with Spirit Qi, then Tang Ao could use the Jade Bone Life Soul to heal all of his external injuries. However, Tang Ao was still riddled with injuries and could only move around slightly. In this day, Tang Ao had gained a certain understanding of this place. This was a region called the Flying Star Continent. There was no Spirit Qi in this place. Instead, it was filled with a special energy called Yuan Qi. Ordinary martial artists absorbed and refined spiritual energy to increase their cultivation, but the martial artists here absorbed and refined Yuan Qi to increase their cultivation. However, the power contained in the Yuan Qi was too weak, so the cultivation of the martial artists here was very low. Tang Ao understood that the highest cultivation a martial artist could reach in the Flying Star Continent was only the Origin Martial Realm. Furthermore, Origin Martial Realm martial artists were very rare. If Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan still had their cultivation, they could really do whatever they wanted in this place. However, Chu Xuehan was unable to absorb the yuan qi in this place to cultivate. Therefore, it was clearly impossible for her to recover her strength. Although Tang Ao could absorb the yuan qi here, the speed was too slow. Moreover, the energy contained in the yuan qi was too thin and weak. Tang Ao estimated that if he didn't have any other methods and just wanted to heal his external injuries, it would probably take half a year. While absorbing the surrounding yuan qi, Tang Ao circulated his weak psyche to check his injuries. The quality of Lei Lingyun's 9 dragon lightning rings was almost on par with Tang Ao's farmer god cauldron. Although Tang Ao had used the farmer god cauldron and the battle sage life soul to block the 9 dragon lightning rings, Tang Ao's internal injuries were still very bad. Ordinary martial artists could only condense a spirit sea to increase their strength after the spirit sea realm. However, because Tang Ao had the 9 dragons emperor jade body, not only did Tang Ao have a spirit sea, but Tang Ao also had a soul sea, which allowed the spirit power and psyche to achieve a balance. In martial cultivation, psyche only played a supporting role. Therefore, when one's cultivation was low, the strength of one's psyche was not very obvious. However, as Tang Ao faced opponents, Tang Ao began to understand the strength of the soul. But now, both Tang Ao's spirit sea and soul sea were dim and in a mess. Tang Ao checked the 108 meridians in his body. After being repaired by the Jade Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao only had 7 meridians that could perform the heavenly cycle revolution. After checking his injuries, Tang Ao smiled bitterly. The injuries from the Thunder Python in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm had not yet healed, and now they were even more serious. What was more serious was that he had come to the Flying Star Continent, a place devoid of heaven and earth spirit chi. Under such conditions, Tang Ao didn't know how long it would take for him to recover his strength. After shaking his head helplessly, Tang Ao got up and walked out of the cabin. The boat that Tang Ao was currently on had a total of 3 floors. There were 2 floors above the deck and 1 floor below the deck. The room that Tang Ao was staying in was a slightly crude room on the 1st floor below the deck. Chapter 1195. After arriving on the deck, Tang Ao felt that the air was much fresher, but the surrounding natural energy was still very thin. Tang Ao gazed into the distance. The surface of the forgetful river was very wide, and the river water was a bit turbulent. It didn't have the sparkling feeling of a still river, but was instead full of a surging feeling. "Ah, brother Tang Ao, why are you out?" Not far from Tang Ao, a girl in a light blue dress walked towards Tang Ao with a food box. Tang Ao naturally recognized this girl. Chiu Yun once passed by Tang Ao's room and noticed that Lu Zhuang and Lu Zhuang weren't taking care of Tang Ao, so she asked this girl to take care of Tang Ao. This girl was called Yu Er, and she was only 15 years old. Tang Ao used his remembrance to examine Yu Er's spirit root. Tang Ao found that Yu Er had an extremely rare illusion-type spirit root. If she was in the black-yellow continent, or even the ice and snow plains, as long as she had the right techniques, Yu Er would definitely become a top-tier expert. Unfortunately, in a place like the Flying Star Continent, there was no spiritual energy, and there were no illusion-type technique. Thus, Yu Er couldn't cultivate martial arts. The Flying Star Continent was a place where everyone wanted to cultivate martial arts. Although Yu Er was a bit disappointed that she couldn't cultivate martial arts, she wasn't depressed. Tang Ao and Yu Er hadn't known each other for long, but Tang Ao could often see a sweet smile on Yu Er's face. "Yu Er, how are you? Are you going to deliver food to Miss Morong Xian?" After seeing Yu Er, Tang Ao started chatting with her familiarly. Yu Er nodded, yes. "However, brother Tang Ao, your injuries haven't healed yet. You should rest well in your room." "Alright, Yu Er, you go do what you need to do. I'll take a walk on the deck." Tang Ao smiled warmly. "Alright, I'll bring something for you to eat later." Yu Er waved at Tang Ao and walked towards Morong Xian's room. However, in the instant that Yuer turned around, she collided with a red-clothed woman who was charging towards her. The box of food in Yuer's hands flew out of her hands. Fortunately, the red-clothed woman had quick reflexes. Not long after the box of food flew out, the red-clothed woman grabbed it with lightning speed. Although this seemed to be a coincidence, Tang Ao could tell that something was amiss. Although Tang Ao had yet to recover from his serious injuries, and his strength was not even a tenth of what it used to be. However, Tang Ao could still clearly see that the woman in red had not accidentally collided with Yuer. She had intentionally collided with Yuer. Moreover, Tang Ao saw the red-clothed woman sprinkle a handful of medicinal powder into the food box the instant she grabbed it. It was just that the direction she chose at that time just so happened to be Yuer's blind spot, and her movements were extremely fast, so Yuer didn't know anything. Yuer didn't know, but she couldn't hide it from Tang Ao at that time. However, after sensing that the red-clothed woman was also at the third level of the body refining realm, Tang Ao could only pretend that he didn't know anything. Tang Ao's current state was really too poor. He was even weaker than a martial artist at the first level of the body refining realm. If he didn't have the ability to protect himself, how would Tang Ao dare to provoke this red-clothed woman? Here. After tampering with the food box, the red-clothed Ding Ning said indifferently. Chapter 1196. At first, when Ding Ning was messing with the food box, Tang Ao was prepared to warn you. However, later on, Tang Ao discovered that a vague soul remembrance was constantly spying on them. Nothing that happened here could escape her eyes. Tang Ao recognized the owner of this soul remembrance. It was Chiu Yun, who had saved him from the Forgetting River. Chiu Yun and Ding Ning had similar cultivations. They were both at the third level of the body refining realm. However, Chiu Yun's cultivation technique seemed to be rather special. Under Tang Ao's perception, Chiu Yun, who was at the third level of the body refining realm, had a soul remembrance that wasn't any weaker than a sixth-level body refining realm martial artist. Since Chiu Yun knew, then Tang Ao naturally didn't have anything to do with it. Outside Murong Xian's room, Yuer carried the food box and lightly knocked on the door. Just as Yuer knocked on the door, Murong Xian smiled and opened the door. After opening the door, Murong Xian rubbed Yuer's little head. Although Yuer was only a servant, Murong Xian had always treated Yuer like her own little sister. Little sister Yuer, you need to eat more. Why are you always so skinny? After speaking, Murong Xian took out a jade bottle from her storage pouch. Inside the jade bottle were 6 jade white pills. These are vitality cultivating pills. Although you can't cultivate, eating one every day can nourish your body. Big sister Xian, I can't take this. Yuer heard that this vitality cultivating pill is for martial artists like you. Yuer can't cultivate, so using this pill is too wasteful. Yuer hurriedly waved her little hand to reject. Murong Xian was right. Even if a normal person used the vitality cultivating pill, it would have the effect of unblocking meridians and strengthening one's foundation. However, Yuer knew that although the Murong family was a large family, every disciple, including Murong Xian, received a limited amount of vitality cultivating pills every month. Eating the vitality cultivating pill could only nourish her body. However, to Murong Xian, the vitality cultivating pill was an important cultivation resource. If I give it to you, just take it. If you don't want it, big sister Xian will get angry. As Murong Xian spoke, she handed the vitality cultivating pill to Yuer's little hand. Yuer was about to return the vitality pill to Murong Xian when Chiu Yun, who was standing at the side, smiled at Yuer. Sister Xian gave it to you, you just need to keep it properly. In the future, Yuer will also treat Sister Xian better. Sister Xian and I have something to talk about. Yuer, go and see your big brother Tang Ao. Yuer nodded when she heard Chiu Yun's words. Even though she had accepted the vitality pill, Yue was still thinking about when she would return it to Murongxian. Even though Murongxian was a good person, only the kind-hearted Yue received special care from Murongxian's handmaidens. At the corner of the long corridor, a servant girl with a somewhat harsh gaze looked at Yue with extreme jealousy. When she saw the vitality-nurturing pill in Yue's hand, undisguised greed appeared in her eyes. Yue was born with no way to cultivate, but she was still able to obtain the vitality-cultivating pill. She, Dinghong, was the most talented among Murongxian's handmaidens, but she had never received a vitality-cultivating pill. From Dinghong's point of view, if she could be like Qiu Yun or her own sister Ding Ning and receive a fixed amount of vitality-cultivating pills every month, she would have long entered the third stage of the body-refining realm. Why would she still be stuck at the first stage of the body-refining realm? Chapter 1197. Although Yue was still young and looked like a porcelain doll, she still looked like a 12 or 13-year-old child despite being 15 years old. However, Tang Ao could still tell that Yue was a beauty in the making. Once she reached the same age as Murongxian, she would definitely be a beauty that could bring calamity to a country. Oh right, brother Tang Ao, let me show you something. Yue's bright eyes turned and she took out the vitality pill that Murongxian had just given her from her pocket. Brother Tang Ao, do you know what this is? Yue waved the vitality pill in her hand and asked Tang Ao mischievously. As a grade 6 spirit pill master, Tang Ao knew almost all the elixirs in the black-yellow continent and the ice-snow plain. However, Tang Ao really didn't recognize the bottle of elixirs in Yue's hands. Brother Tang Ao, let me tell you, this is the vitality pill. It's a very precious item. Seeing that Tang Ao did not recognize it, Yue introduced it to Tang Ao. Vitality pill? What's the use of this pill? Tang Ao basically knew everything about the Flying Star continent from Yue. Although Yue was young, she really knew a lot of things. Martial artists on the Flying Star continent absorb the energy of heaven and earth to increase their cultivation base. However, the concentration of energy varies from place to place. Some places even have very thin energy. The vitality pill, on the other hand, contains very pure energy and can greatly increase a martial artist's cultivation speed. Since she could not cultivate martial arts since she was young, Yue would often go to the Murong family's library to read books. The Murong family's library contained many ancient books on the Flying Star continent. This was why Yue had such a broad knowledge at such a young age. After hearing Yue's explanation, Tang Ao understood. The vitality pill was equivalent to the spirit stones in the black-yellow continent and the snow pearls in the winter plains. However, unlike natural spirit stones and snow beads, the cultivation resource here was the vitality-augmenting pill, refined by an alchemist. Tang Ao took the jade bottle containing the vitality-augmenting pill and glanced at it. Immediately after, Tang Ao asked, Yue, is there a better vitality-augmenting pill than this? Tang Ao was a peak-level 6 spirit pill master. With just one look, Tang Ao could tell that the pill in his hand was very crude, or rather, of very low quality. Moreover, Tang Ao could also see that this was not because of an alchemist. The alchemist who refined this furnace of pills could be said to be very meticulous in his alchemy, but for some unknown reason, the grade of this bottle of pills was still very low. Brother Tang Ao, how do you know that the vitality cultivating pill has different grades? Yue was a little curious, but she still said to Tang Ao, according to what I know, the vitality nurturing pill is divided into 4 grades: low grade, middle grade, high grade, and top grade. The bottle that Sister Xian gave me is a bottle of middle grade vitality augmenting pill. Above it, there are 2 better vitality augmenting pills. Tang Ao could not help but complain in his heart. If this quality of vitality augmenting pill was considered a middle grade vitality augmenting pill, then how bad would the lower-grade vitality-augmenting pill be? Then are there many alchemists who refine the vitality-augmenting pill on the continent? In Tang Ao's opinion, the vitality-augmenting pill was the most important cultivation resource for the Flying Star continent. There must be many alchemists continuously refining it in order to meet the huge demand. Chapter 1198. Hearing Yu Er's words, Tang Ao became even more interested in the origin-augmenting pill. If I have the recipe for the origin-augmenting pill, I can refine it. Tang Ao was a 6th-tier alchemist and had inherited the alchemy skills of the Shennong Emperor. Tang Ao's words were not exaggerated at all. However, to others it was a different story. Just as Tang Ao finished speaking, a displeased voice came from the side. "Humph, the ignorant are truly fearless. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How could the origin-augmenting pill be so easy to refine? Forget about the origin-augmenting pill. I can see that the origin-augmenting pill in your body is very ordinary. I'm afraid it would be difficult for you to become an alchemist." The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe with a long beard. This old man's eyes did not have the slightest bit of kindness that an elder should have. Instead, they were filled with arrogance and arrogance. "What does it have to do with you whether I'm an alchemist or not?" This person spoke rudely the moment he arrived. Tang Ao naturally would not give him any face. The Shennong Emperor was the ancestor of alchemy, and Tang Ao was the true disciple of the Shennong Emperor. If even Tang Ao did not know how to refine pills, then there would not be many people in this world who could. "How dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to an alchemist like this?" Lu Chuanfeng's face was filled with anger, and his eyes flashed with fierceness. Tang Ao did not have the slightest bit of origin-augmenting pill. It was obvious that he was a lowly mortal. As an alchemist who could refine low-level origin-augmenting pill, even Murong Xian had to be polite to him. Tang Ao actually dared to talk back to him. He had no idea what was good for him. "Big brother Tang Ao, alchemist Lu Chuanfeng is a 2-star alchemist." Yu Er saw the conflict between Tang Ao and Lu Chuanfeng and was a little worried for Tang Ao. Normally, Lu Chuanfeng relied on his ability to refine low-level origin-augmenting pills to run amok. Many cultivators had to be polite to him. Moreover, Lu Chuanfeng was an extremely narrow-minded person. If Tang Ao offended him, he would definitely suffer the consequences. After Lu Chuanfeng finished speaking, without waiting for Tang Ao to speak, Tang Ao felt a gust of wind behind him. Scanning with his sole remembrance, Tang Ao saw a black-clothed martial artist attack him with a whip kick. If it was before Tang Ao was injured, even if Tang Ao stood still and let this person hit him for a year, Tang Ao would not be injured in the slightest. However, now that Tang Ao had not recovered from his injuries, he could not even dodge. "Poochie!" Tang Ao felt a sharp pain in his back, and the wound that had not fully healed split open again. Under Lu Gang's attack, Tang Ao flew over the railing and fell into the river of forgetfulness. When Yu Er saw this, she immediately threw herself at the railing and looked into the water. Seeing Tang Ao fall into the water, Yu Er wanted to save Tang Ao, but Yu Er didn't know how to swim. "Master Lu Chuanfeng, there's no need to lower yourself to the same level as this person who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth." After a whip kick sent Tang Ao into the river of forgetfulness, Lu Gang looked at Lu Chuanfeng with a fawning expression. Lu Gang was part of the Murong family's young Mrs. bloodline. On this boat, Lu Gang didn't dare disrespect Murong Xian, but he didn't dare offend Lu Chuanfeng. Just now, he had coincidentally seen Tang Ao contradict Lu Chuanfeng. Lu Gang was overjoyed and immediately kicked Tang Ao into the water. As for whether or not Tang Ao was saved by Murong Xian, Lu Gang didn't care. "Commander Lu Gang, you've gone too far." At this time, Murong Xian had already arrived at the railing. After coldly speaking, Murong Xian leaped off the boat. After arriving at Tang Ao's side, Murong Xian grabbed Tang Ao and returned to the boat. After being rescued onto the boat, Tang Ao couldn't hold it in any longer and spat out another mouthful of blood, causing the front of his clothes to turn blood red. Chapter 1199. I, Tang Xian, will remember your kindness today. Tang Ao looked at Lu Gang and Lu Chuanfeng silently. His gaze was not threatening at all, but it was filled with coldness. Under this gaze, Lu Gang and Lu Chuanfeng, who clearly knew that Tang Ao was just an ordinary person, couldn't help but restrain their expressions. In that instant, the two of them felt an abnormal pressure. Murong Xian also glanced at Tang Ao. It had been 3 days since she rescued Tang Ao on the pleasure boat, but Murong Xian still didn't understand Tang Ao at all. Initially, Murong Xian thought that Tang Ao wouldn't be able to hold on for long and would die. However, Murong Xian didn't expect that Tang Ao's self-healing ability was too shocking. Not only did he not die from such heavy injuries, he could actually walk after 2 or 3 days. Murong Xian was also very suspicious of Tang Ao's indifferent gaze just now. Although she couldn't explain it, Murong Xian felt that such a gaze was definitely not something an ordinary person who couldn't cultivate could have. You're courting death. Although Lu Gang was stunned for a moment by Tang Ao's words, he quickly regained his senses. Although Lu Chuanfeng didn't say anything, his eyes also flashed with coldness. Tang Ao had contradicted him time and time again, and he had just threatened Tang Ao. Lu Chuanfeng already wanted to kill Tang Ao. Therefore, Lu Chuanfeng looked at Lu Gang coldly and signaled for him to finish off Tang Ao. Lu Gang's action was originally to curry favor with Lu Chuanfeng. Now that Lu Chuanfeng had signaled, even with Murong Xian at the side, Lu Gang didn't hesitate to smash his iron fist towards Tang Ao. Meanwhile, Qiu Yun, who was beside Tang Ao, appeared in a flash. At the same time, she slapped at Lu Gang's iron fist. Tang Ao could see that Qiu Yun had grasped the timing very well. Qiu Yun, who was only at the early stages of the 3rd stage of the body refining realm, was no match for Li Gang, who was at the peak of the 4th stage of the body refining realm. After being blocked by Qiu Yun, a ferocious tiger life soul erupted behind Lu Gang. It was the life-stealing tiger from the 5th firmament. After summoning his life soul, Lu Gang's figure seemed to merge with the life-stealing tiger. Then, Lu Gang pounced on Qiu Yun and sent her flying. After sending AI Qiu Yun flying, Lu Gang charged towards Tang Ao without losing any momentum. It was as if he wanted to tear Tang Ao to shreds. Impudent! After Lu Gang injured Qiu Yun, Murong Xian instantly stood in front of Tang Ao. Murong Xian did not make a move. She merely stared coldly at Lu Gang. Murong Xian was the daughter of the current head of the Murong family, Murong Di. However, aside from Murong Xian, Murong Di also had a concubine's daughter. Murong Xian had no interest in the family's power, but her half-sister, Murong Lan, had always been against Murong Xian. This Lu Gang in front of Lu Gang was from Murong Lan's bloodline. Originally, before her father, Murong Di, was injured, Murong Lan had been rather restrained. However, now that Murong Di was recovering from his illness, her sister, Murong Lan, had gradually revealed her fangs. Although Lu Gang did not fear Murong Xian, the head of the family, Murong Di, was still alive. Lu Gang did not dare to go overboard. As Murong Xian stood in front of Tang Ao, Lu Gang immediately retreated. Following a flash of light, the life-stealing tiger life soul that Lu Gang had summoned was retracted into his body. After retracting the life soul, Lu Gang looked coldly at Tang Ao and said, "Brat, let's see how long you can hide." Chapter 1200. A dragon in shallow water would be toyed with by shrimps, and a tiger in plain land would be bullied by dogs. Tang Ao's heart was filled with helplessness. In his previous life, Tang Ao was a peak 9th level astral reaching realm demon lord. For a low-level continent like the Flying Star continent, Tang Ao could turn it into ashes with a single stroke of anger. But now, a mere 4th-tier body refining realm martial artist actually dared to be speechless in front of him and even injured him. As Tang Ao lamented, his eyes were also filled with apathy. Tang Ao rarely showed such an expression, but those who were familiar with Tang Ao knew that when Tang Ao showed such an expression, it meant that someone was about to die. "You're Tang Ao, right? Come to my room later. When I was hugging you just now, I felt that your injuries were quite severe. I want to examine your injuries carefully." However, this somber atmosphere melted away with just one sentence from Murong Xian. When Murong Xian rescued Tang Ao just now, she was worried that Tang Ao's injuries would be too severe, so she carried Tang Ao onto the ship. It wasn't that Tang Ao hadn't been in contact with beautiful women before, but when a beautiful woman asked him to carefully examine his injuries in public, Tang Ao felt a little ashamed. However, Tang Ao still nodded. At a time like this, it was undoubtedly safer for him to stay by Murong Xian's side. Who knew if Lu Gang would take things too hard and cause trouble for Tang Ao again? Moreover, looking at Lu Gang's attentive attitude towards Lu Chuanfeng, such a thing was extremely likely. After Lu Gang and the others left, Tang Ao followed Murong Xian to the 2nd floor of the pleasure boat. There were only 3 rooms on the 2nd floor of the pleasure boat. Originally, Murong Xian, Qiu Yun, and Yue each had a room. After Murong Xian brought Tang Ao upstairs, she let Yue and Qiu Yun stay together while Yue's original room was given to Tang Ao. "Young Master Tang Ao, is there anything else?" After Murong Xian had arranged a room for Tang Ao, she saw that Tang Ao was still standing there. She could not help but ask in confusion, "Didn't Miss Murong want to help me examine my injuries?" Tang Ao said without thinking too much. A strange look flashed across Murong Xian's eyes when she heard this. When she saw that Tang Ao's eyes were clear, Murong Xian rolled her eyes at Tang Ao. "I was just making up an excuse, but you took it seriously. But it's okay to chat with you. Come with me." Murong Xian's words startled Tang Ao. Tang Ao had initially thought that Murong Xian had some sort of special technique that allowed her to see through his injuries. Naturally, Tang Ao did not have the honor of visiting Murong Xian's boudoir. After following Murong Xian for a while, Tang Ao arrived at the reception hall on the 2nd floor of the pleasure boat. Once Tang Ao and Murong Xian had taken their seats, Qiu Yun served them some fragrant tea and stood behind Murong Xian. Murong Xian rolled her eyes at Qiu Yun and said, "You damned girl, are there any outsiders here? Let's sit together." She then pointed at the chair next to her, gesturing for Qiu Yun to sit with her. Even though the Murong family has many servant girls, Murong Xian did not have the superior attitude of a master. Instead, she saw them as her sisters and friends. Hence, in the Murong family, most people hoped that Murong Xian would be the next master. However, Murong Di's concubine, Madame Lu, has developed her influence over the years and has become a noisy guest who has usurped the master's position. Murong Xian does not wish to fight with them at home, so she has been living on the pleasure boat all year round. Chapter 1201. In another 5 days, the pleasure boat will pass by Yunhua Mountain. I'll escort you to Yunhua Mountain Villa then. The young master of Yunhua Mountain Villa is my friend. You should be safe once you get there. Murong Xian rubbed her temples and whispered to Tang Ao. Even though she was not keen on fighting for power in the family, these matters had left Murong Xian exhausted. "Lady Murong, it seems that Pill Master Lu Chuanfeng holds quite a high position in the Murong family?" Tang Ao did not answer whether he was willing to go to Yunhua Mountain Villa or not. Instead, he asked an irrelevant question. Murong Xian nodded and said, "The Murong family is now in decline. There are only 5 pill refiners in the family who can refine low-grade spirit-augmenting pills, and 1 pill refiner who can refine medium-grade spirit-augmenting pills. Among these pill masters, there are 5 pill masters who can refine low-grade vitality-augmenting pills, and they are all from my elder sister Murong Lan's faction. The pill master who can refine mid-grade spirit-fostering pills is my aunt. However, my aunt has a congenital deficiency and her body is frail." Murong Xian did not continue and sighed worriedly. This was her family's business. Even though it was not a secret, there was no point in telling a stranger like Tang Ao. "Let's not talk about these headache-inducing matters. Why did Sir Tang Ao fall into the river of forgetfulness with such severe injuries?" "I was being chased by powerful cultivators. With nowhere to go, I fell from a cliff and landed in the river of forgetfulness. Fortunately, Lady Murong saved my life." Tang Ao hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I wonder if Murong Gunyenji has any high-grade or mid-grade spirit-fostering pills. I would like to borrow some from you." Once Tang Ao had finished speaking, Chiao Yun spoke angrily without waiting for Murong Xian to reply. "Tang Ao, how could you be so excessive? Sister Xian had saved your life out of kindness. Not only did you not repay her kindness, you even covet Sister Xian's cultivation resources. Now that Murong Lan's family has been suppressing Sister Xian, she doesn't even have enough cultivation resources for herself. Where would she find the extra to lend to you?" "Chiao Yun, stop." Murong Xian shook her head at Chiao Yun and looked at Tang Ao. "I haven't gotten any high-grade spirit-fostering pills in a long time. I do have a lot of mid-grade spirit-fostering pills left." As Murong Xian spoke, she stood up and walked towards a treasure box. With a thought, Murong Xian opened the treasure box. There were items neatly arranged in the box. In the corner of the box there were 5 bottles of pills. Murong Xian's only hesitation was to take out the threefold vitality, nourishing pill and pass it to Tang Ao. Although Tang Ao's soul remembrance was very weak, he could still see that the treasure chest only had 5 bottles of cultivating essence pills. When Murong Xian mentioned that she still had a lot of mid-grade spirit Xian, Ao didn't think. Pill clan were spirit didn't Xian had a yang. However, Mo Xian clan, Xian Mu Xian Yang spirit, and Yang Mu Xian sect, Yang have a. However, Tang Ao didn't expect that although Murong Xian always had a smile on her face, she was in a very bad situation. Moreover, what touched Tang Ao was that Murong Xian was willing to lend 3 bottles to someone she had only known for a short time, even though she only had 5 bottles. Although Tang Ao was sincerely borrowing from Murong Xian, Tang Ao knew that Murong Xian was probably just trying to give it to him. Tang Ao didn't accept all of the 3 spirit-fostering pills Murong Xian offered. Instead, he only took 1 bottle. The quality of this bottle of essence-raising pills was the best. Tang Ao did not intentionally take advantage of this small advantage, but rather, he really needed essence-raising pills at this moment. Chapter 1202. Although Murong Xian was a direct descendant of the Murong family, her monthly supply of vitality-enhancing pills was limited. Ever since Murong Xian had been suppressed by her sister's family, she had not received any mid-grade vitality-enhancing pills for the past 2 months. The 5 bottles of mid-grade vitality-enhancing pills that Tang Ao was looking at were the last 5 bottles Murong Xian had. Seeing that Tang Ao had only accepted 1 bottle of vitality-enhancing pills, Murong Xian smiled bitterly. "I've embarrassed myself in front of young Master Tang Ao. Take this bottle of pills as a loan from Miss Murong. 15 days later, I will definitely return it to you." Tang Ao didn't intend to take Murong Xian's pills for free. "So?" he replied after thinking for a moment. Tang Ao had borrowed the vitality-enhancing pills from Murong Xian because he was not a native cultivator of the Feixing continent. Although Tang Ao could absorb and refine the heaven and earth yuan qi here, Tang Ao's speed was still too slow. This time, Tang Ao had been injured by Lu Gang's sneak attack. If he relied on his own body to absorb and refine the surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi to heal, Tang Ao estimated that it would take him a few months to recover. The vitality-enhancing pills contained a large amount of yuan qi. After consuming the vitality-enhancing pills, one only needed to control the yuan qi to complete a circulatory cycle revolution to absorb it. Compared to Tang Ao's current absorption and refining speed of heaven and earth essence qi, the amount of essence qi provided by a low-grade essence-raising pill was roughly equivalent to a week's worth of Tang Ao's normal cultivation. The amount of yuan qi provided by a middle-grade essence-cultivating pill was comparable to the amount of yuan qi that Tang Ao could absorb and refine after 3 months of normal cultivation. Of course, this was only in theory. Every cultivator was different. When different cultivators consumed the vitality-enhancing pills, they would naturally achieve different results. "Miss, young Master Shangguan Fei is here," a servant said respectfully at the entrance of the living room as Murong Xian and Tang Ao were chatting. Although the servant was talking to Murong Xian, his eyes were burning with desire as he stared at the vitality-enhancing pills in Tang Ao's hand. This cultivator's name was Lu Tao. He came to the Murong family because of Murong Di's concubine, Madame Lu. Compared to Lu Gang and the others, Lu Tao was much more cunning. He would listen to Murong Lan's words and he would not go against Murong Xian's words. This way, he could benefit from both sides. However, Lu Tao had served under Murong Xian for such a long time. Although Murong Xian had bestowed him with many treasures, she had never given him a mid-grade vitality-enhancing pill. In this way, when Lu Tao saw the middle-grade essence-cultivating pill in Tang Ao's hand, he couldn't help but have some thoughts in his mind. Tang Ao did not know who this Shangguan Fei was. After keeping the essence-enhancing pills, Tang Ao was about to leave. However, Tang Ao noticed that Murong Xian was frowning. It seemed that Shangguan Fei's arrival had caused her some distress. Even though that was the case, Murong Xian quickly retracted her troubled expression. Even though he knew that the newcomer did not come with good intentions, what was the use of being distressed? Following the sound of slightly rhythmic footsteps, everyone in the living room looked towards the door. Immediately after, Tang Ao saw a warrior with a long steel sword slung on his back. This man had 3 hideous scars on his face. Although they were just 3 scars, Tang Ao could see that these 3 scars were caused by a single saber strike. Chapter 1203. However, it was different on the Flying Star Continent. Tang Ao understood that on the Flying Star Continent, due to the thin yuan qi of heaven and earth, even the most elite martial artists could only reach the early stage of the origin martial realm their entire lives. Therefore, these martial artists spent most of their lives honing their martial techniques, which was why their martial techniques were very powerful. Ta. Under everyone's gaze, Shangguan Fei walked in with slightly suppressed steps. Shangguan Fei didn't say anything after he walked in, but his gaze swept over the crowd. He then coldly said, "Murong Xian, stay. The rest of you scram." This sentence was not only impolite, but also unquestionable. Qiu Yun stood in front of Murong Xian. Although she didn't move, her eyes revealed her nervousness. Every time Shangguan Fei came, Qiu Yun was the most nervous. Shangguan Fei was temperamental and extremely strange. As long as he was happy, he would do anything. The 3 scars on his face were not caused by others, but by his elder brother, Shangguan Wuji. It was said that during a banquet, Shangguan Fei suddenly went berserk and cut off the head of his elder brother Shangguan Wuji's most beloved concubine. Shangguan Wuji immediately drew his sword and wanted to fight. After the 2 fought for 300 rounds, Shangguan Wuji barely won by 1 move and left 3 scars on Shangguan Fei's face. Chiu Yun really couldn't imagine what a madman like him would do to Murong Xian. At this moment, Murong Xian was also very curious. This Shangguan Fei was a martial artist at the peak of the 7th stage of the body refining realm. No one on this boat was his match. Including this time, Shangguan Fei had come to this boat 3 times. However, no matter which time he came, nothing good happened on this boat. At this moment, a wave of messy footsteps came from outside the door. Tang Ao swept out with his sole remembrance, and found that many people had arrived. Most of these people were Murong Xian's guards. Looking at these guards, Tang Ao shook his head slightly. Although there were many people, their cultivation levels were too low. The highest cultivation level was only at the 3rd stage of the body refining realm. Against Shangguan Fei, who was at the 7th stage of the body refining realm, they probably wouldn't even be able to take one move. Other than Murong Xian's guards, Tang Ao also saw Lu Gang and Lu Chuanfeng among the crowd. But this time, Lu Chuanfeng was accompanied by a bald man with a black dragon tattoo on his face. This man's eyes were very cold. Even though he was standing there doing nothing, no one dared to approach him. Tang Ao guessed that this was probably Lu Chuanfeng's bodyguard. This was because this bald man's aura was not weak, and his ability was not to be underestimated. He was at the 6th level of the body refining realm. Moreover, his arms were thick and sturdy, with blue veins protruding from his skin. Both sides of his temples were also slightly protruding. Clearly, he was a powerful figure. Comparing Lu Chuanfeng's guards to Murong Xian's guards, Tang Ao felt a wave of sorrow wash over him. Lu Chuanfeng was just a servant of the Murong family, yet he had the protection of a 6th-tier body refining realm martial artist. As for Murong Xian, the young lady of the Murong family, the future master of the Murong family, she only had a bunch of weak cultivators by her side. Shangguan Fei's sole remembrance swept over the crowd, and his lips slightly perked up. While everyone was still in a daze, Shangguan Fei unsheathed the long sword on his back at an inconceivable speed. Then, he shot out like a bolt of lightning, flying towards Lu Chuanfeng, who was outside the room. Although the long sword was aimed at Lu Chuanfeng, Tang Ao was right in the path of the long sword. Chapter 1204. This scene shocked many people. Lu Chuanfeng, who was waiting for Tang Ao to be killed, naturally did not react in time. Before Lu Chuanfeng could react, Shangguan Fei's long sword was already in front of him. At this moment, Lu Chuanfeng's cultivation was much higher than Tang Ao's. However, Lu Chuanfeng's cultivation was the result of piling up medicinal pills. Normally, he would not even practice martial skills. Moreover, his combat experience was pitifully low. Faced with this situation, Lu Chuanfeng's head was buzzing, and he shouted in his heart that he was dead meat. Compared to Lu Chuanfeng, Lu Gang was clear-headed. If Lu Gang wanted to, as long as he pushed Lu Chuanfeng to the ground, he would be able to keep his life. However, Lu Gang did not dare to do so. He knew that although he was not bad, he would not be able to withstand Shangguan Fei's anger. Ding! A crisp sound interrupted Lu Gang's thoughts. It turned out that the bald man beside Lu Chuanfeng had appeared in front of him, and Shangguan Fei's long sword had hit him between the eyebrows. However, his eyebrows did not seem to be made of flesh and blood, but made of metal. Shangguan Fei's sharp sword could not penetrate his eyebrows at all. With a wave of his hand, Shangguan Fei withdrew his sword, and there was only a white mark between the bald man's eyebrows. Humph, Tai Longqing, how did you end up being someone's dog? Forget it, come over and drink. Shangguan Fei obviously knew this bald man, and his attack just now was to force Tai Longqing to attack. In the face of Shangguan Fei's sarcasm, Tai Longqing did not say a word, and instead walked over to the table and sat down. He did not like to talk, but he was very obedient. Shangguan Fei asked him to come over and drink, so he came. At this time, Shangguan Fei looked at Tang Ao and said, "You come over and drink too." After saying that, Shangguan Fei said coldly to the people around him, "Everyone else, get lost. If you don't, you can come over and drink." At the same time, Shangguan Fei slashed out with a ghostly sword energy, and then a scream came from the roof beam, followed by the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Needless to say, the person who had been spying on Shangguan Fei was most likely dead. After witnessing such a scene, no one dared to stay any longer. The group of people outside the door quickly dispersed. Even Lu Chuanfeng only glanced at the expressionless Tai Longqing before leaving hatefully. At the same time, Lu Chuanfeng also hated Shangguan Fei. Since Shangguan Fei dared to humiliate him in front of his face, he would not be Lu Chuanfeng if he did not bear this grudge. After the crowd had left, Murong Xian nodded at Qiuyun, gesturing for her to leave. Even though Murong Xian was still afraid of Shangguan Fei, Murong Xian knew that Qiuyun would not be able to do much by staying here. If Shangguan Fei were to do something shocking again, Qiuyun would most likely be implicated. Murong Xian wanted to ask Tang Ao to leave as well, but Tang Ao was asked to stay by Tang Ao. Therefore, Murong Xian could only give Tang Ao an apologetic look. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.